Chapter 898. There was one more thing that Kang Yuanxiao did not explain to Lu Yi, and that was that even though the Law Division was a powerful organization and no one dared to provoke them outside, the things they did were often unpleasant. Most cultivators were used to being free and unrestrained, and did not have any scruples in doing things. However, the law of the state guards was like a mountain, and it was inevitable that someone would inadvertently violate the law of the state guards. As a result, the Law Division needed to step in and deal with it. In the process of dealing with these matters, it was very easy to offend people and then be feared and hated by others. This was also the reason why the Law Division feared the law. There were many cultivators in the war state, and even if the Law Division had strict requirements to recruit people, requiring at least the cultivation of the true lake stage, they did not have many people. It was because many times the Law Division cultivators did things that offended people and were not liked by others, so there were not many who were willing to join the Law Division. If they really wanted to gain merit, they could do it at any of the front lines. In addition to the high casualty rate, the Law Division's law enforcement team often had a shortage of people. Pulling in able-bodied men became an unspoken rule. Kang Yuanxiao spoke with a serious expression. Junior apprentice brother Lu, during the law enforcement team's mission, there are 3 things that are not allowed. Please remember, if you violate them, you will not be let off lightly. Senior apprentice brother, please speak. Lu Yi was all ears. First, you are not allowed to use your status as a law enforcement team member to do personal things. Second, during the mission, without permission, you are not allowed to contact the outside world. Third, during the mission, you are not allowed to act alone, and at least have to be in a group of 2. These 2 must be remembered. The sect leader nodded seriously. I will remember. The 3 uniform beauties were also women, and smiled slightly. Of course, junior apprentice brother need not be too relaxed. There is a first time for everything. Just experience more and it will be fine. Ji Biao thought that he was not relaxed either, so he asked, what mission are we doing this time? Ji Biao Xiong smiled and shook his head. Only the captain knows the details of the mission. We are only responsible for following orders. In the following time, the true lake stage told the sect many things to pay attention to, and Biao Xiong 5 are rested. As for the others, they were all focused and ready to go all out. After saying everything that needed to be said to the sect, the true lake stage cultivator took out an item and passed it to Ji Biao. Little brother, take some time to refine this item. Zhong Shou took it and looked at it. He asked suspiciously, formation plate? The thing in his hand looked similar to a disc array, but it didn't look like a disc array. Instead, it looked more like a Dharma artifact. However, if one were to call it a Dharma artifact, it seemed to lack something. 6 Origin Spirit Forbidding Locks. This is a spirit artifact unique to the Law Enforcement Division. It can't be found outside. When the time comes to carry out the mission, the 6 of us will need to split into 6 different directions and activate the power of this object. We will be able to restrict the flow of spiritual power in a certain area. As long as everything goes well, we will be able to take down the target effortlessly. The sect leader was enlightened. No wonder he felt that something was missing from this item. It turned out that this item came in a set. There were 6 pieces in a set, and each of the 6 people had one. The principle of its operation was similar to that of a formation. It meant that each of the 6 people had this item and could set up a spirit forbidding array in a very short period of time. A cultivator's greatest reliance was the spiritual power that they cultivated. If their spiritual power was restricted, then their cultivation would not be able to be used. However, their physique was much stronger than a mortal's, which naturally made it easier for the Law Enforcement Division to carry out the mission. No wonder they needed to pull in a strong man. Because there were 6 of these items, they needed the cooperation of 6 people. Therefore, when the A3 team lacked a member, the Gung spirit vessel could only carefully pull in a dry person to make up the number. Senior Marshal Brother, how high is the cultivation base of the person we need to deal with? Zhong Shou's expression was solemn. The strength of this team was not weak, but they still needed to use this kind of magic artifact. Wouldn't the enemy they were about to encounter be very weak? The true lake stage cultivator knew what Zhong Shou was thinking and comforted him. In particular, The cultivation base of the target we need to deal with is in Mafeng. Therefore, even if we face him head-on, we can still take him down. It's just that with this item in hand, it's more convenient to carry out the mission and avoid any unnecessary injuries. Zhong Shou then understood. Junior Marshal Brother, refine it first. When you can activate the power of this item, I will teach you the cooperation method. Thank you, Senior Marshal Brother. Refining the 6 origin spirit restriction locks was not a problem. Zhong Shou's spiritual power was pure enough. No matter what he refined, the efficiency was very high. In just half an hour he had completely refined the 6 origin spirit restriction locks in his hand. He also asked Ji Biaoxiong for the cooperation method. Soon, everything was ready. Lu Yi flew through the clouds. During this time, the Gung spirit vessel replaced Lu Ye's Shangguanqiu. It was not until the second day that they arrived at their destination. Lu Yi stopped. The 6 people walked out one by one and stood in the air. Looking at the capital gate, there were many pavilions and lofts in the second type of Shueishu law firm. It was obvious that the first department had been there for many years. Looking at it this way, the target of this mission should be someone from the Wei Lu. Immortal Dawn Mountain. The true lake stage cultivator at the side was more knowledgeable. He immediately recognized that this was a Wei Lu called the Immortal Dawn Mountain. In the entire Jiuzhou, the Immortal Dawn Mountain was not very famous. However, in the military province, this Wei Lu was a little famous because it was a 4th rank Wei Lu. According to the Jiuzhou Tianji's evaluation of Ji Biao's rank, there were at least 20 Mo Fengs in the 4th rank Wei Lu. As for the Spirit C stage, there was definitely no one. This was because if the Immortal Dawn Mountain had a Spirit C stage cultivator, it would not be a 4th rank cultivator, but a 3rd rank cultivator. To be able to send out an enforcement team of Mo Fengs, it meant that the person they were going to deal with this time must be someone high up in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. It was very likely that it was an elder. As for who exactly it was, only the Gung spirit vessel would know. The only thing that the sect was curious about was why the target of this mission was targeted by the Law Division. Did he offend a martial king? Or was he a spy of the Wanamo Ridge? Go down. The Gung spirit vessel waved its hand. Everyone landed and silently passed through the mountain ridge. After walking for a while, they saw a straw hut. In front of the straw hut, an old man with a solemn expression was quietly waiting. He should have made an appointment with the Gung spirit vessel. The team led the way. Junior Gung. The old man cupped his fists. The Gung spirit vessel returned the salute. Kong Yuan Xiao, long time no see. The old man was the sect master of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, Sect Masterin. This time, the A3 team came to the Immortal Dawn Mountain to capture someone. Naturally, they had to greet the sect master. Without his permission and cooperation, not to mention capturing someone, even entering the Immortal Dawn Mountain would be a problem. Ji Biaoxiong smiled bitterly. After so many years, Junior Gung is still as good as ever. Ji Biaoxiong is also old but strong. No, I can't reach the Spirit C stage in this life. But Junior Gung, if you work hard, there might be hope. The Gung spirit vessel's eyes flashed with a hint of sadness. He himself was unclear about his own talent. If he did not have a great opportunity in this life, he would stop at this point. From the True Lake stage to the Spirit C stage, the barrier between the True Lake stage and the Spirit C stage made many heroes cry. He, the Gung spirit vessel, was not an ordinary monster. How could he be an exception? Sweeping away the depression in his heart, Gung Jibiao straightened his face. Let's not talk about other people's business. Kong Yuan Xiao should know why we are here. Ji Biaoxiong's gaze swept across the 5 people behind the Gung spirit vessel. His expression became bitter. Who is it? How could Ji Biaoxiong not recognize the law enforcement team of the law department? It was precisely because he recognized them that his heart was bitter. Because after receiving the message from the Gung spirit vessel, he could not figure out who the Gung spirit vessel's target was. The few Mofengs who stayed in the mountain were all of the older generation who had made great contributions to the Wei LV. How could such a person be targeted by the law department? If it was just defending King Wu, then it was fine. To be honest, most of the state guards had offended King Wu more or less, but the degree was different. King Wu was like a mountain, but the law was nothing more than human feelings. If it was just offending King Wu, it was not a big deal. He was only afraid that it was not the time to offend King Wu. The Gung's spirit vessel did not make a sound. He just wriggled a few times at Zhi Biaoxiong's mouth. Sect leader An's expression changed abruptly. How could it be him? He thought about the few Zhi Biaoxiong who stayed behind to guard the mountain. The others might have offended King Wu, but it was impossible for this person to have done so. However, he never expected that the name inferred from the Gung spirit boat's mouth was actually this person's name. But if it was not Zhi Biao, then? Zhi Biaoxiong suddenly felt a little creepy. What's the reason? Kong Yuanxiao should know the rules of the law department. Please don't ask more. The Gung spirit vessel's expression was impartial. Sigh. Zhi Biaoxiong sighed heavily. If this old man said that this matter might be wrong, you shouldn't, the Gung spirit vessel interrupted him. Kong Yuanxiao, please don't take any chances. You should know the law department's style of doing things. For so many years, how many people who have been targeted by the law department are innocent? If there is no conclusive evidence, the law department will not make a big fuss. Because once the law department's people made a move, even if there was nothing, it would become a problem. It would be very difficult to ruin a person's reputation. Therefore, the law department's enforcement team would not make a move easily. But once they made a move, it meant that they already had conclusive evidence. Sect leader An's expression seemed to have aged a lot. He stood in the same place for a long time before he said, "Follow me." "Thank you for your trouble, Kong Yuanxiao." The Gung spirit vessel's gaze was sharp. "But Kong Yuanxiao, please consider the big picture. I know you have a close personal relationship with that person. But Kong Yuanxiao, don't forget that you are not only that person's friend, but also the sect leader of the immortal Dawn Mountain. This old man knows." Sect leader An's expression was solemn. "There is no need for junior brother to remind me." He turned around and led the way. They did not meet a single immortal Dawn Mountain disciple. The entire immortal Dawn Mountain did not seem to notice the sudden visit of a group of 6 people today. Until they walked for dozens of miles and approached the valley in front of the straw hut in the valley, the old man fishing in the lake shook his hand and the fishing rod fell into the water. He sighed heavily, his face was full of bitterness. What should come, finally came. It was the last day of the month. There was nothing to do. He wanted to ask for monthly votes. Every month he could get almost 2,000 votes. Chapter 899. In the nameless valley of the immortal Dawn Mountain, the lake was sparkling and a lone boat was drifting. An old man was fishing alone on the boat. His fishing rod was already in the water as if a big fish had taken the bait, dragging the fishing rod across the water. With King Gung Wu as the leader, the 6 members of the law enforcement team immediately surrounded the old man. At the same time, the team of 6 summoned the 6 origin spirit restriction chains. In an instant, the space around the old man was completely sealed. The sudden change caused the old man to let out a muffled groan and his figure to bend a bit. Lu Ye's position was behind the old man to the right. He looked up and saw that the old man was full of energy and had a thin body. This was the goal of this mission. From his appearance, one could not see anything special, but from the simple conversation between King Gung Wu and Mofeng, Lu Yi knew that the old man was not as simple as he looked. The old man stood up and looked at Mofeng, who was standing not far in front of him. He smiled and said, "Senior Marshal Brother, you're here?" And Mofeng looked at this junior brother of his who had grown up with him, who had studied under his master, and who had made Immortal Dawn Mountain great and strong. His heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife. His dry lips moved, but not a single word came out. "You must be from the law enforcement team, right?" The old man looked at King Gung Wu and the others. They seemed to have accepted their fate. Not only did they not show any signs of resistance, they even had the mood to comment, "You're all good. It's good to be young." Of course, the main reason was that he couldn't resist. Under the 6 origins spirit restriction lock, all spiritual power was restricted. No matter how much the old man's cultivation level would be in the future, He was just a person without a physical body and could only display a little of his strength. Search. Lu Yi snorted and took out a piece of golden silk paper. He opened it and shouted, "Immortal Dawn Mountain's young elder, King Gung Wu, original name Zhao Jing, from the Cloud region. 41 years later, he snuck into the War region and changed his name. He was lucky enough to join the Immortal Dawn Mountain and hid until now. He tried to destroy the foundation of the War region. He is not guilty and will be arrested by the Law Enforcement Hall's 8 team." Sin 1, 78 years later, the next sect leader of the Immortal Dawn Mountain was assassinated by you when he was out on a mission. He died. Sin 7, 84 years later, during the small battle at the Heavy Cloud Pass, you ambushed and killed a few cultivators from the Grand Heaven Alliance. Sinner 8, 81 years later, at the 100 Battles Pass, you provided information to the enemy. In the end, you lost several thousand men. Sin 7. Even though he had no guesses in his heart, when Gung Lui read out King Wu's crimes, Myriad Demon Ridge still staggered, and his face turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye. He had never thought that this junior martial brother of his, whom he had spent decades with, would not have such a side to him. Every time Kong Lui read out a crime, Wan Mo Ling's expression became more and more aged. 7. Forget it, I'm too lazy to recite it. Gung Lui Wu impatiently put away the list of crimes in his hands and looked at King Wu fervently. In short, King Wu, you've been exposed, take it. When the order was given, 2 dragon-binding ropes flew out from Shengguan Qiu and Mu Jing's hands. The dragon-binding ropes, which were at the level of a magic tool, were like spiritual snakes as they coiled around King Wu and tied him up firmly. The complexity of the mission was unexpected. Ling Qi originally thought that they would have to fight a battle on this trip, but they did not expect the other party to show no signs of resistance, allowing them to activate the power of the dragon-binding ropes and the dragon-binding ropes. Once they caught him, it was even more likely that the other party would stir up some trouble. In other words, the mission had basically been completed. All that was left was to bring Jin Jin back to Grand Sky City. As for how to deal with him, that was the matter of the prison. Just as Jin Jin was thinking this, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. In the dark, an inexplicable sense of danger surged in his heart. His expression turned cold, and he secretly became vigilant. This kind of intuition was rarely accurate, but there were also times when it was a sign. Especially for Ling Qi, who had given birth to spiritual sense, this kind of intuition could easily be ignored. He suddenly realized that even though he knew that he had been exposed, King Wu had a reason to surrender. Even an ant would drag out its life, let alone a cultivator. He knew what would happen once he was caught. If Ling Qi was in his position, even if he knew that there would be no good in resisting, he would probably just sit and wait for death. Unless he wanted to live. But looking at King Wu's posture, did he even have the slightest intention of dying? Ning, who was imprisoned in his body, and his body was bound by 2 dragon-binding ropes. King Wu was still calm and composed. He looked at Gung Jin Jin and said, "Fellow Taoist, Dharma and logos are based on human feelings. Seeing that I am so cooperative, how about you let me say a few words to senior brother?" Gung Lui frowned, but finally nodded, "1 cup of tea." "Yes, it will take that long." King Wu smiled, then looked at Wan Mo Ling, whose face was completely pale. "Senior brother, you must have nothing to ask." Wan Mo Ling's heart was in a mess. He had a stomach full of questions, but he did not know where to start. He subconsciously said, "Yes, yes, yes." "What's wrong?" "Junior brother, do you want to explain to them?" King Wu chuckled. "Shun, you were naive when you were young, and you're still the same when you're old. Son, how can you lead the Immortal Mountain with a bow? You and I both know that the law department will make a small fuss. If they make a move, they must have solid evidence. Moreover, did senior brother hear what this fellow Taoist said just now? Is that so?" Wan Mo Ling clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. "So, you're really in Mafeng's spy?" King Wu sighed. "Fate makes fools of people. The next sect leader was also killed by you? You've wronged me. I know where the law department got the information from, and I actually know some things that happened decades later. But at that time, the old sect leader was already seriously injured and had a long life ahead of him. I just sent him on his way. No matter what, the old sect leader taught me, and he can be considered half a master. Although I'm in Mofeng's spy, I will still do such things. What about other things? You can consider it as doing it. Seeing that Wanemo Ling wanted to continue, he sighed and said, Senior brother, I don't have much time. Is this all you want to ask? Wanemo Ling was speechless. How could he know that he was asking nonsense? King Wu said, Senior brother, you're wasting your energy. I'm indeed in Mofeng's spy. Back then, before I stepped on the path of cultivation, I was sent here. Although I was forced, I still did something that didn't harm the Haotian alliance. The law department is right to arrest me today. How can it be? Until now, Wanemo Ling still doesn't dare to doubt it. It's really hard for anyone to accept this. There are many spies like me in the Haotian alliance who are Jinbin spies. Of course, the Haotian alliance also placed a few spies on Mofeng's side. The two sides have been fighting for so long. Although I'm Mofeng's subordinate, I grew up cultivating in the Immortal Dawn Mountain. I've always thought of myself as a member of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. I've always thought of myself as a member of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. I've always thought of myself as a member of the Immortal Dawn Mountain. He looked into the distance leisurely. His eyes were simple. What a pity. It's time, Sect Masterin. We should go now. Gong Lui shouted. Jinbin was stunned. Obviously, this series of events had shaken his mind and made his thoughts chaotic. Seeing him like this, King Wu didn't feel any resentment. Before the old sect master died, the young elders recommended you to be the next sect master. I tried my best to stop it because, senior brother, you're suitable to be the sect master. Your mind is too difficult and was affected by the internal forces. Now, it seems that it's true. Just a traitor has shaken your mind. If you encounter an even smaller matter, what will you do? What are the smaller things? Myriad Demons Ridge asked. For example, the danger of sect annihilation? King Wu looked at him with a deep gaze. At this moment, Ling Qi's heart was beating wildly. The sense of danger he sensed after that was extremely weak. Clang! The sound of a long saber being unsheathed alarmed everyone. When everyone's eyes focused, the saber in Ling Qi's hand had already ignited and he slashed it towards King Wu. This unforeseen event caused Gong Lu Yi and the others to be slightly shocked. Did Ji Ling Qi go crazy? Their mission this time was to capture people. As for how to deal with it, it was up to them to manage. Naturally, there was no need for the people of Vast Sky City to worry about it. If they killed someone now, they would have to explain themselves when they returned. As soon as Gong Lui's voice fell, his face changed. King Wu, who should not have been able to retaliate due to being bound in place, suddenly emitted a weak and tangible force that swept out in all directions. Just a moment ago, Gong Lui felt a pain in his head and saw stars. The others were even more unstable and fell into the lake. Divine sense. Gong Jinjin was a fourth-order true lake realm cultivator after all. Although he was suddenly attacked, he didn't immediately lose consciousness. Before he realized what had happened, he was shocked and angry. The target of this mission wasn't a true lake realm cultivator, but a hidden spirit sea realm cultivator. No one knew when he broke through to the spirit sea realm, or what method he used to hide such a young man. However, from the weak divine sense, the other party shouldn't have broken through to the spirit sea realm for a long time. His cultivation was at least a second-order spirit sea realm cultivator. The sudden change caught everyone off guard. Under the divine sense attack, 10,000 Demon Ridge and Gong Lu Yi were barely able to maintain their bodies. The others all fell back into the lake. The effect of the 8 origin spirit lock was instantly broken. Only the long saber in Ling Qi's hand fell to the side. HM? King Wu showed a surprised look. In his perception, Ling Qi's cultivation was the highest among everyone present, a mere first-order true lake realm cultivator. But in this sudden change, Ling Qi's performance was the most eye-catching. He had even made a move before King Wu could do anything. And under his divine sense attack, this first-order true lake realm cultivator wasn't affected in the slightest. This was a strange thing. King Wu subconsciously thought that Jin must be from a top sect and was wearing some kind of treasure. Chapter 900. Lu Yi did not expect that his vigilance in times of peace would be confirmed so quickly. He had the golden lock given to him by Thought Moon Immortal around his neck. Outside his spirit sea, there were 2 flood dragon phantoms protecting him. Inside his spirit sea, there was the soul-suppressing pagoda. Not to mention a trivial second-order divine sea realm cultivator, even if he met Wan Zhonggang, his soul would not be damaged. When Ning Hu unleashed his divine will, Lu Yi could clearly feel that the golden lock on his neck had unleashed an invisible barrier, attempting to block the attack. Although it had some effect, it was not obvious. The invisible attack blasted towards Lu Ye's mind, but before it reached his spirit sea, it was blocked by the twin dragon sea guard. The soul-suppressing pagoda's spirit sea remained calm. The long saber also slashed down. Ning Hu obviously did not expect such a thing to happen. When the law enforcement team arrived, he did not resist. It was not because he wanted to die, nor was it because he was willing to be captured. It was because he had something to rely on. If he was really a true Lake Realm cultivator, he would naturally have to submit under the 6 origin spirit lock and dragon binding ropes. But 8 years ago, he had quietly reached the spirit sea realm, and now he was a second-order divine sea realm cultivator. The 6 origin spirit lock could restrict spirit energy, but it could not restrict divine sense. He could get rid of it at any time. He just wanted to say a few words to an Mo Feng before they completely fell out. That was why he was so cooperative. Everyone underestimated him, and he underestimated Sun Yi. But then again, who would have thought that a trivial first-order true Lake Realm cultivator would not be affected by the divine sense attack? One had to know that under the impact of his divine sense, even true Lake Realm 9th Order cultivators like an Mo Feng and King Gung Wu were stunned for a moment. Xiao Jing's enemy naturally had to pay the price. Ning Hu's hastily condensed protective spiritual energy was not able to completely block Lu Ye's sharp blade. The blade landed on Ning Hu's chest, leaving a wound. Blood splattered. Ning Hu felt the pain and quickly broke free from the dragon binding ropes. Violent spirit energy surged as he threw a punch. This punch was indescribably fast. The thin old man's strength could make any true Lake Realm cultivator feel despair. In his field of vision, the shadow of the fist rapidly enlarged, covering the sky and hiding the earth. The aura of death swept over. Lu Ye's mind was unprecedentedly clear. The long saber in his hand slowly danced. As the long saber danced, it evolved into a mysterious saber aura. The flames on the blade soared. The twisting flames seemed to come alive, quickly forming a complex and profound pattern. This was the spirit pattern that had made a great contribution in the battle with Wan Zhonggang. Obviously, he was an experienced fighter. Boom. A loud sound was heard. Behind King Gung Wu, Gao Gonglong stood up, and at the same time, a shockwave that could be seen with the naked eye exploded, and blood gushed out from his mouth. The huge difference in cultivation allowed Ning Hu to crush King Gung Wu, a true Lake 9th Order cultivator, even without using his divine sense. Releasing his hand, King Gung Wu's aura weakened and he fell into the lake. Ning Hu turned around and looked at Nu Feng coldly. Sure, Yuan, if you had joined forces with him just now, even if you could not defeat me, you could have stalled for a while. What are you hesitating for? Are you still going to be so naive? You're too disappointing. The Immortal Dawn Mountain will not have a good ending in your hands. If that's the case, why don't I destroy it first? Saying so, he rose into the sky and flew straight into the depths of the sect. Old and recalled what Ninggu had said before and his temper when he was young. He hurriedly chased after him. Stop. I'm afraid you're really the Thousand Demons Ridge's virgin. The sect has raised and taught you for so many years. You can't do this. You're still so stubborn. When will you? How long would it take for him to wake up? I'm going to fire sect now. You're talking to me about gay principles? If you have the ability, you can stop me. The 2 figures quickly disappeared into the distance. The peace of the place was broken. After they left, a group of embarrassed figures emerged from the lake. They were the members of Team A3. Under the impact of their divine sense, Except for the strongest King Gungwu and Lu Yi, the rest fell into the water. It was only now that they regained their senses. They rushed out of the water and landed by the lakeside, coughing nonstop. Mu Jing, who was the most meticulous, turned around and was shocked. "Where's Captain and Lu Yi?" There was no trace of them in the surroundings, but when they were underwater, they could clearly feel the movements of the experts fighting. When they looked at the floating boat, there was a pool of blood on the surface of the water. "Captain, he wouldn't." Mu Zheng's eyes turned red. Kang Yuanxiao immediately stood up and was about to enter the water again. At this moment, with a splash, Hu Po, who had returned to his true form, walked out of the lake with Lu Yi on his back and King Gungwu in his mouth. "Captain!" A few people exclaimed and rushed forward to check the situation. After checking, they found that King Gungwu was seriously injured and unconscious. Although Lu Yi was awake, he also looked injured. "What should we do?" Mu Jing did not know what to do. She thought it was going to be an easy mission. Who would have thought that something like this would happen? 4 of the 6 people in the team died when the enemy turned hostile. It was embarrassing. Send a message back first. Kang Yuanxiao took out his guard token. It was not their fault that something like this happened. It was the fault of the person in charge of the intelligence department. In such a situation, they could only send a message quickly. The Grand Sky City would mobilize the nearby Divine Sea Realm experts to deal with this. But that would take time as well. Shrill screams and shouts came from not far away, accompanied by the aftermath of the fierce battle. It was obvious that Ning Hu was killing people. His identity was exposed and he could no longer stay in the war province. But before he left, he wanted to do something else. The reason why he did not kill the 6 members of the enforcement team was not because he was merciful, but because he was afraid of the young law department. If he really killed all the members of the enforcement team here, even if he could escape back to the Myriad Devil Ridge, he would have to be on guard against the revenge of the law department. Once he was targeted by the law department, it would be difficult for him to have a good night's sleep. It's not a good place to stay. Let's go. Xiao Ruiyun's face was serious. Kang Yuanxiao shook his head slowly. If we leave like this, we can't report back. Why can't we report back? The mission information was wrong. Isn't it our fault to stay here and wait for death? If we join forces with the people from the Immortal Dawn Mountain, we might be able to take down Ning Hu. A Divine Sea Realm cultivator was indeed powerful, but Ning Hu was only a second-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator. The few of them were true Lake Realm cultivators, and there were still true Lake Realm cultivators from the Immortal Dawn Mountain. If they worked together, even if they could not take down Ning Hu, they could at least stall him. But they would have to be prepared to die. I'm afraid it's too late now. Since Ning Hu has already made his move, he will definitely target the true Lake Realm cultivators of the Immortal Dawn Mountain first. He didn't kill us before because he was afraid of the law department. If we really join in, do you think he will go easy on us? He can even kill his own fellow sect members. What can't he do? But our law department is responsible for maintaining stability within the sect and eliminating traitors from the outside. How can we just sit back and do nothing when we encounter such a thing? The 2 of them quarreled fiercely for a while. If King Gungwu was still awake, they would naturally listen to his orders. But King Gungwu was in a coma and the team was like a group of dragons without a leader. In the new month, he continued to ask for votes. Chapter 901. Junior Brother Lu, what do you think? Shangguan Qiu, who had been silent all this time, suddenly turned to look at Lu Yi, who was adjusting his chaotic spirit qi. The A3 team led by King Gungwu had their own strengths, and Shangguan Qiu's was good at observation. Just now, they had experienced a great change and were attacked by the divine sense of a spirit sea realm cultivator. Others might not have paid much attention to it, but Shangguan Qiu did not forget. Before Ning Go could reveal her true cultivation, this able-bodied junior apprentice brother, who had been temporarily pulled in, had already slashed out with his blade. This undoubtedly meant that he was extremely sensitive to the impending crisis, which was why he was able to attack before Ning Go. After all, Ning Hu was a hidden spirit sea realm cultivator. Such keen senses could be said to be terrifying. In this situation, it was not wrong to ask Lu Ye's opinion. You can't judge a book by its cover. Sheng Guanqiu would never underestimate others just because of their low cultivation. Just as King Geng Wu said before, who didn't start from the first order true lake realm? What's the point of asking him? Xiao Ruiyun said impatiently, he's just a first order true lake realm cultivator. Maybe he hasn't even seen a real battlefield. In this situation, it's better to retreat quickly. Sheng Guanqiu glanced at him. If Captain is awake, he probably won't make this choice. But Captain is already unconscious, and Captain will never joke about our lives. Amidst the noise, Lu Yi suddenly stood up with his long saber and took a few deep breaths. His chest and abdomen were aching, but other than that he was fine. It didn't affect his strength at all. He waved his hand, and Hooper immediately turned into the size of a cat and jumped onto his shoulder. Junior brother Lu. Kong Yuanxiao looked at him in shock, and the others also looked over. Lu Yi looked in the direction of the screams and fighting sounds, and said slowly, I don't know what you're going to do when you encounter this kind of situation, but I've suffered a loss, so I naturally have to pay for it. If the opportunity is right, I'll pay for it now, immediately. Everyone was stunned. Naturally, they could see Lu Ye's intention to intervene in the affairs of the immortal Dawn Mountain. Even Kong Yuanxiao, who suggested joining forces with the true lake realm cultivators of the immortal Dawn Mountain, couldn't help but be stunned. He didn't know where Lu Yi got his courage from. If he went there, he would be facing a warrior at the Spirit Sea realm. A true lake cultivator naturally had no chance of winning against a god ocean cultivator. Just the suppression of spiritual will alone was enough to consign a true lake cultivator to eternal damnation. But coincidentally, Lu Yi had a rare treasure that could be used to deal with divine sea realm warriors. Thanks to the past master, after the Battle of Lonely Mountain City, Lu Yi had asked Tianji to reward him with a huge amount of battle merits, which gave him enough capital to buy that rare treasure from the War Merit Pavilion. Originally, he just wanted to be safe so that he would be able to fight back when he encountered a warrior of the Spirit Sea realm again. He didn't expect that it would come in handy so soon. Moreover, Lu Yi had received help from many cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance that he didn't know. Especially when his identity as a disciple of the Jade Blood sect was exposed at the Spirit Stream battlefield, there were many cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance that he didn't know. That was why he was able to reach the top of the Golden Light and hold on until eldest senior sister and fourth senior brother arrived. After that, at the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield, he had also received help from some cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance that he didn't know. Perhaps some of them were from the immortal Dawn Mountain. Now that the immortal Dawn Mountain was about to be exterminated, it was fine if Lu Yi didn't have the ability to stop it. But since there was a chance, he had to try. Kid, don't mess around. With your insignificant cultivation, you're just going to die. Xiao Ruiyun shouted. Lu Yi turned a deaf ear to him and strode forward. A figure flashed in front of him. Xiao Ruiyun stood in front of him and looked at him firmly. We brought you out, so we have the responsibility to bring you back. Don't go any further. Seeing that Lu Yi didn't stop, Xiao Ruiyun gritted his teeth and raised his guard token, shouting, I order you as the guard token of the military province. Now, immediately, go back. With that, he channeled power into the guard token in his hand. The guard token released a dense yellow light. Lu Yi looked at the guard token in his hand and muttered to himself in silence. Xiao Ruiyun said, I don't care which pass you're from, but according to the military province's guard law, if there's an emergency, the one with the highest military rank has the right to command. Even if you're new to the province guard, you should have heard of this law. There was indeed such a rule in the guard law. Normally, the rank of the soldier was only the standard for the amount of salary a cultivator received each month. It also only had effect within the same pass. For example, if Lu Yi was in the Ash Flame Mountain Pass, then within this pass, he could mobilize and command all the province guards with lower military ranks than him, no matter how high their cultivation was. Of course, right now, the Ash Flame Mountain Pass only had him and Thought Moon Immortal, so he couldn't command anyone else. Once he left the pass, his military rank might not necessarily be in charge. This was also a law set to prevent cultivators with high military ranks from abusing their power. However, in an emergency like the one before him, the military rank determined the size of the right to speak. Lu Yi didn't think of using his military rank to pressure others. His cultivation was right there, so what was the use of having a high military rank? It was better to not do things that were difficult to convince others. Moreover, he and the people of Team A3 had only met by chance and were pulled in to carry out the mission together. They didn't know each other that well, so he didn't want the others to help him and prepared to go alone. Because he himself didn't know how useful that strange treasure would be. If it was really useful, perhaps it could resolve the danger of the immortal Dawn Mountain. If it was useless, then he would have to retreat. However, the other party held the guard token in front of him, so Lu Yi had no choice but to respond. He untied the guard token at his waist and waved it at Xiao Ruiyun. "I'm afraid you can't order me around." The sudden burst of purple light almost blinded Xiao Ruiyun's eyes. Kang Yuanxiao and the others also stared at Lu Yi's back in a daze, their hearts in turmoil. It wasn't until Lu Yi soared into the sky and flew towards the depths of the immortal Dawn Mountain that Mu Zheng exclaimed, "Captain!" The few of them were all captains. It wasn't that their cultivation wasn't high enough, but that they didn't have enough battle merits. Only their captain, who had stayed in the True Lake stage for a longer time, was given the rank of captain. However, their captain, King Gung Wu, was in the True Lake stage 9th order, while Lu Yi was only in the 1st order. Xiao Ruiyun originally wanted to use his military rank to order Lu Yi to retreat, but he didn't expect Lu Yi's military rank to be one level higher than his. How could he order him around? Lu Yi already gave him a lot of face by not ordering him to follow along. "Captain is awake." A low shout was heard. Everyone didn't have time to be shocked by Lu Yi's captain anymore and gathered around King Gung Wu. At this time, the square of the immortal Dawn Mountain's main peak was covered in blood and corpses. Surprisingly, Ning Hu had already started his massacre. There were more than 20 True Lake stage cultivators in the immortal Dawn Mountain. It could be said that their foundation was quite good, but most of them weren't in the sect. They were either working for the state guards or wandering outside for other reasons. There were only 7 True Lake stage cultivators in the sect, including an Mo Feng and Ning Hu. At this moment, 3 of them were already dead. Their bodies were covered in blood and it was unknown whether they were dead or alive. The remaining few, including an Mo Feng, were all injured. Obviously, they had just fought a fierce battle with Ning Hu. When Lu Yi arrived, he saw many cultivators of the immortal Dawn Mountain looking at Ning Hu with anger and shock. Ning Hu was also carrying a young man who was only in the 3rd order Cloud River realm. The young man was about the same age as Lu Yi. To have such a cultivation at such a young age, his talent was obviously extraordinary. In a 4th grade sect like the immortal Dawn Mountain, he would definitely be the future mainstay of the sect. The impression that Ning Gu gave to everyone in the immortal Dawn Mountain was one of benevolence and warmth. The lake that he cultivated in seclusion was a place that anyone could enter. Many disciples would seek advice from him when they met with difficulties in cultivation. Thus, when he suddenly revealed a side that no one knew about, not only were the normal disciples unable to accept it, even the True Lake stage elders were unable to accept it. The contrast was too big. However, there were at least a few dozen corpses all over the square. It was clear that Ning Hu was a spy of the 10,000 Demon Ridge. When Lu Yi hurried over, Ning Gu turned to look at him. There was a hint of envy in his eyes. Everything was afraid of comparison. The young man in his hand was about the same age as the young man from the law department, but their cultivation and temperament were completely different. Why couldn't the immortal Dawn Mountain cultivate such an outstanding disciple when others had one? However, his goal wasn't Lu Yi, so he didn't pay much attention to him after a glance. A 1st order True Lake stage cultivator couldn't change the current situation. At the same time, Lu Yi also had doubts in his heart. Why didn't Ning Hu escape? His identity had been exposed and he had admitted it. Logically speaking, he could have escaped quickly. Otherwise, once the law department mobilized the nearby Spirit Sea stage cultivators, he wouldn't be able to escape even if he wanted to. Not only did he not escape, but he also came here to start a massacre? What was his intention? If it was as he said, it would take him a lot of time to destroy the immortal Dawn Mountain by himself, even if he could do it. As his thoughts raced, Lu Yi noticed something. Ning Hu didn't want to leave here alive. Even if he escaped, he wouldn't be able to escape the sphere of influence of the War Province's Grand Heaven Alliance. As for his real purpose, Lu Yi didn't know. A young man who was sent here by the 10,000 Demon Ridge and hid for nearly 100 years had his roots in the 10,000 Demon Ridge, but his cultivation was all in the immortal Dawn Mountain. Whether he was from the 10,000 Demon Ridge or the Grand Heaven Alliance, who could say for sure? At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air came from behind. Lu Yi turned around and saw King Gung Wu and the others from the A3 squad rushing over. Seeing that Lu Yi was unharmed, King Gung Wu let out a long sigh of relief. The other members didn't know Lu Yi's background. They only thought that he was a man that King Gung Wu randomly picked on the street. Although King Gung Wu wasn't too sure, he was still the person chosen by the Division Lord. If anything happened to him, it would be difficult to explain to the Division Lord. Chapter 902. Seeing that Lu Yi was unharmed, King Gung Wu heaved a sigh of relief. No wonder he was chosen by the sect leader. In such a situation, he actually dared to come here alone. Not to mention other things, just this courage alone was enough to surpass the other members of his team. Senior Gung, Lu Yi called out softly. King Gung Wu nodded. He looked at the situation and frowned. He had the same question as Lu Yi. Why didn't Ning Gu escape? Before he could figure it out, he heard Ning Gu yelling, Senior Gung, can't you see through the situation? Blood flowed from the corner of Enmofeng's mouth. He covered his chest with his hand and said, No matter what, let Ziyen go first. You watched him grow up. The young cultivator called Ziyen, who was being held in Ning Gu's hand, said with difficulty, Grand Elder, please spare my life. Ning Gu shook his head slowly and looked at Enmofeng bitterly. Senior Gung, you disappoint me. Our talents were similar in the past, but now I'm at the Divine Ocean level. What about you? You're still stuck at the True Lake level. You used more cultivation resources in the sect, but now I'm at a higher level. Do you know why? Enmofeng sighed. The old sect leader once said that in terms of talent, you're better than me. Bullshit. Ning Gu shouted angrily. That old thing's eyesight is bad. He can't even see that I'm a spy from the Myriad Demons Ridge. What else can he see? Today, I'll tell you why I can reach the Divine Ocean level but you can't. As he spoke, he took a step forward. It's because you've always placed your hopes on others. You've never thought of fighting for yourself. Generation after generation, you've always been able to reach the Divine Ocean level. You made the leading immortal Changshan Pu rise to the ranks of the 3rd rank. You are one, your teeth are overboard. It is better to rely on yourself than on others. Don't forget that you're the sect leader of the immortal Dawn Mountain. Enmofeng was slightly dazed by Ning Gu's loud roar. He thought back to the past few decades and realized that what Ning Gu said was true. After realizing that he wouldn't be able to step into the Divine Sea realm for a long time, he had placed all his hopes on the disciples below him, losing all will to struggle and strive. Ning Hu continued, In the last generation, you placed all your hopes on that little brat surnamed Zhong, but in the end, he died just after breaking through to the Cloud River realm. In this generation, you have placed all your hopes on Ziyen. His luck is better than that little brat surnamed Zhong's, and he is now a 3rd-order Cloud River realm cultivator, but how can you guarantee that he won't die prematurely? So what if he managed to cultivate all the way to the True Lake 9th Order? Can you guarantee that he can ascend to the Divine Sea? I can do it, Great Elder. The young man called Ziyen shouted. I can definitely do it. No one can be certain about the future. He tightened his grip, and Ziyen couldn't make a sound. He looked up at Enmofeng and said, Senior brother, you have the potential to reach the Divine Sea realm. It's just that your temperament and spirit have been destroyed. Enmofeng sighed. What's the point of saying all this now? Of course. Ning Hu suddenly laughed. Enmofeng suddenly realized that something was wrong and asked in surprise, What are you going to do? Cut off the expectations and thoughts in your heart. You can only rely on yourself. As soon as he finished speaking, Ning Hu tightened his grip and with a cracking sound, Ziyan's neck was crushed. The light in his eyes quickly dimmed. Although Ning Hu had gone on a killing spree and killed dozens of people, No one had expected that he would really kill Ziyan. Because in the past, the relationship between the grandfather and grandson was very good. Ziyan could be said to have watched Ning Hu grow up and taught him. Ning Hu could be considered half his master. Even so, Ning Hu had killed Ziyan without hesitation. His ruthlessness was shocking. Ning Hu threw Ziyan's body aside like a rag and shouted, "Senior brother, whether you can protect the immortal Dawn Mountain or not depends on yourself. You have to hurry." As soon as he finished speaking, he rushed towards the place where the crowd was the densest. How could the immortal Dawn Mountain disciples resist when a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator attacked so unscrupulously? In an instant, many of them died. A few injured elders beside Ma Feng were furious. They no longer cared about the difference in strength between them and rushed towards Ning Hu to stop him. And Ma Feng himself seemed to be dumbfounded. He stood there with his eyes filled with confusion. Stop him. On the other side, almost as soon as Ning Hu attacked, King Gongwu ordered and rushed out. The rest of the team followed closely behind and joined the battle. In an instant, a great battle broke out and spirit energy surged. Including the True Lake Realm elders and the members of Team A3, there were 8 True Lake Realm cultivators present. King Gongwu was a True Lake Realm 9th Order cultivator. With such a lineup, they could barely fight against Ning Hu. But they were still not his match. The gap of a great realm was extremely terrifying. So, even though Lu Ye's team had the advantage in numbers, they were still at a disadvantage. Fortunately, the members of Team A3 cooperated well, so there were no casualties. Especially King Gongwu, who was the strongest among them. He used all his strength and restrained 30% of Ning Hu's energy by himself. Lu Yi did not have the tacit understanding of Team A3, so he tried his best not to disrupt their cooperation. In addition, his cultivation was the lowest, so he had been wandering around since the beginning of the battle. It was not that he cherished his life, but he was waiting for an opportunity. An opportunity to use the treasure in his hand. Ning Hu did not use his divine sense. It was not that he could not, but even as a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, using his divine sense consumed a lot of spirit energy. Especially since he was only a 2nd Order Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, he naturally would not rashly use his trump card. This gave the others a chance to entangle him. But the battle could not continue like this. In less than half a cup of tea's time, the 2 True Lake Realm elders of Immortal Dawn Mountain had fallen to the ground one after another. It was unknown whether they were dead or alive. On Team A3's side, King Gongwu was bleeding from his 7 orifices. Kong was suffering from the backlash of his technique, so the spirit energy in his body was in chaos. It was difficult for him to do anything. Mu Zheng, the female cultivator, was even worse. Besides Lu Yi, her cultivation was the lowest in the team. Just now, she was caught off guard and was punched in the stomach by Ning Hu. She was sent flying 20 feet away. At this moment, she was leaning against a wall and constantly coughing up blood. Obviously, she did not have any energy left to fight. On the contrary, Lu Yi, who had the lowest cultivation, was in the best condition. First, he had been wandering around the periphery, not giving Ning Hu a chance to seriously injure him. Second, with the help of Returning Moon and the defensive spirit rune, he could at least protect himself from the aftermath of the battle. The opportunity he had been waiting for did not come, but his team was about to collapse first. Once King Gongwu and the others were seriously injured and unable to fight back, everyone could only wait for death. "Captain, if the people from the Law Division don't come, I'm afraid I'll have to go first." Xiao Ruiyun roared as he struggled to defend against Ning Hu's frenzied attacks. Suddenly, a crisp sound came from his arm. It was his arm bone that was broken. Although he had advocated for an immediate retreat and even used the guard token to stop Lu Yi when he moved, he did not hesitate to use the guard token. However, when it came to the real battle, he was not careless at all. There were a few times when he blocked the aftermath of Lu Ye's attacks. "Hold on a little longer, they are on their way," King Gongwu replied. As if King Gongwu's words made Ning Hu feel a sense of danger, he frowned and no longer wanted to continue the battle. In the next moment, his divine sense surged and turned into an invisible force that blasted towards King Gongwu. At the moment when he used his divine sense to attack, Lu Yi, who had been waiting for a long time, also activated his divine sense at the same time. An almost transparent small sword without a handle shot out from his hand. Deity Vanquishing Sword. This was a rare treasure that cost Lu Yi 26,000 battle points. It was the reason why he dared to fight against Ninghu. The Deity Vanquishing Sword was meant to vanquish one's divine sense. He did not know how powerful this rare treasure was. In addition, there was a huge gap between his cultivation level and Ninghu's. Therefore, he did not dare to use it recklessly and had been waiting. He was waiting for the moment when Ninghu activated his divine sense. The Deity Vanquishing Sword turned into a sharp ray of light and arrived in front of Ninghu in an instant, breaking his divine sense attack. Ninghu could not help but let out a muffled groan. This was the danger of a battle between divine sense cultivators. Although divine sense cultivators were born in the divine sea realm, they would not activate their divine sense attacks easily because it would give their enemies an opportunity to attack. Ninghu did not expect that the weakest cultivator present would have a way to deal with him. In a moment of carelessness, his divine sense was broken and he felt a sharp pain in his head. Originally, his divine sense attack was aimed at King Gongwu. If he had used it fully, King Gongwu would have been stunned and his life would be in danger. However, after his divine sense was broken, King Gongwu only felt a slight dizziness in his head and then he was fine. On the other hand, Ninghu endured the pain of his divine sense being broken and raised his hand to catch the Deity Vanquishing Sword. Seeing this, Lu Ye's heart sank. This was the weapon he relied on to deal with divine sea realm cultivators. He had spent 26,000 battle points to exchange for this rare treasure from the War Merit Pavilion. He had high hopes for it, but it turned out like this. Just when he thought that the Deity Vanquishing Sword did not live up to its name, the rare treasure that he caught suddenly slashed out a small ray of sword light. The ray of sword light cut into Ninghu's forehead, but it did not cause any harm to him. Instead, it disappeared the moment it came into contact with him. However, Ninghu felt as if he was hit by a hammer. His head jerked back and his body staggered backward. He could not help but let go of the Deity Vanquishing Sword. At the same time, he let go of the Deity Vanquishing Sword and let out a miserable scream. The sudden change of events confused everyone. However, they knew that it must be the work of Lu Ye's rare treasure. King Gongwu was extremely good at grasping opportunities. Almost at the same time Ninghu retreated, King Gongwu rushed forward and punched out with both of his fists. There was a loud boom, Ninghu's skinny body flew out and he spat out blood in the air. Rays of sword light chased after Ninghu. It was Kong Yuanxiao's flying sword. Lu Yi also raised his saber and stabbed out with the starry sky sword. Brother Shen Zhangqing walked on the road. When he met someone he knew, he would greet them or nod his head. But no matter who it was, everyone's face was expressionless. It was as if they were indifferent to everything. To this, Shen Zhangqing was already used to it. This was the Demon Suppression Department, an organization that maintained the stability of the Great Qin Empire. Their main job was to kill demons and monsters. Of course, they also had other side jobs. Could be said that, in the Demon Suppression Department, everyone's hands were stained with blood. When a person was used to life and death, they would become indifferent to many things. When Shen Zhangqing first came to this world, he was not used to it. But as time passed, he got used to it. The Demon Suppression Department was huge. Those who could stay in the Demon Suppression Department were all powerful experts or people who had the potential to become experts. Shen Zhangqing belonged to the latter. The Demon Suppression Department was divided into two professions. One was the Guardian, and the other was the Demon Slayer. Anyone who entered the Demon Suppression Department would start from the lowest level, the Demon Slayer. Then, they would advance step by step until they finally had a chance to become a Guardian. Shen Zhangqing's previous life was a Demon Slayer trainee in the Demon Suppression Department. He was also the lowest level Demon Slayer trainee. He had the memories of his previous life. He was also very familiar with the environment of the Demon Suppression Department. It did not take long for Shen Zhangqing to stop in front of a loft. Unlike the other places in the Demon Suppression Department that were filled with killing intent, This loft was like a crane in a flock of chickens. In the demon suppression department that was filled with blood, it presented a different kind of tranquility. At this moment, the loft's door was open. Occasionally, people would enter and leave. Shen Zhongqing only hesitated for a moment before stepping in. He entered the loft. The environment suddenly changed. A faint smell of ink mixed with the faint smell of blood wafted over. His brows instinctively furrowed, but they quickly smoothed out. The smell of blood on everyone in the demon suppression department was almost impossible to clean. Chapter 903. When the attacks stopped, Ning, whose hair was disheveled and his body was like a broken sieve, bleeding profusely. He was caught off guard by the attack of the rare treasure, which caused him to suffer greatly. However, he was still alive. Not only that, but the pain in his soul made his counterattack even more violent. If Ning, who was crazy before, he still had his own thoughts. Now, he was like a madman. Fortunately, his soul was damaged and his mind was in a mess. Therefore, although his attacks were fierce, they did not have a clear goal. King Gongwu was scared out of his wits as he fought with Ninghu. Even Kang Yuanxiao's flying sword was not enough to support Ninghu. Ninghu had lost his biggest advantage in the Spirit Sea realm after his spiritual will was broken. However, his cultivation of spiritual power was still there. It was not easy to defeat someone like him. Senior brother Geng, dodge. Lu Yi roared and something appeared in his hand. He raised his hand and threw it at Ninghu. King Gongwu reacted quickly. Although it was the first time he worked with Lu Yi to kill an enemy, he had great trust in Lu Yi. Almost as soon as Lu Yi opened his mouth, King Gongwu retreated. Boom! A loud sound was heard. In the midst of the flames, the impact of the explosion and the scorching heat wave drowned Ninghu. King Gongwu, who had retreated not far away, saw this scene and his eyelids twitched. He was glad that he dodged quickly. If he was a little slower, he would have been engulfed. Although this kind of power would not kill him, it was enough to make him lose face. What is this? When King Gongwu turned his head to look, he saw Lu Ye's hands clasping onto another item that exploded just now. King Gongwu was at a loss as he realized that those items were just spirit stones, the fire spirit stones of the 5 elemental spirit stones. Bao King Gongwu knew that the fire attribute spiritual energy within the fire spirit stone was violent and unstable. Therefore, he had to be careful when handling the fire spirit stone because the fire attribute spiritual energy within it could dissipate if it were to be touched. He had never heard of this kind of thing exploding. Moreover, its power was not bad. It was almost equivalent to the full-strength attack of a true Lake Realm cultivator. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Yi kept throwing out the fire stones, which were branded with explosive inscriptions, one after another, turning them into balls of scorching flames that wrapped around Ninghu's body. Normally, such an attack would not work, because a warrior at the Spirit Sea realm would not stand there and take his attack like a fool. But Ninghu's divine will was broken, and his head was hurting. His mind was in a mess, and he could only rely on his instincts. There was no way he could avoid such an attack. Fire spiritual stone and explosion spiritual tattoo were the means of fighting against the enemy. Some killing weapons found by Lu Yi in the underground karst cave should be refined by the Fire Spirit clan. Although the patterns on them were not exactly the same as the explosion spiritual tattoo, it was enough to inspire a real spiritual tattooist. This was the first time Lu Yi had used such a method against an enemy, and it was against a Spirit Sea realm warrior. The effect was surprisingly good. The sound of explosions rang out continuously. Kang Wang thought that these things had been specially refined, but in reality, Lu Yi had only imprinted explosive spirit patterns on the fire spirit stones the moment he took them out and then tossed them out. While taking out the fire spirit rock, Lu Yi secretly activated his divine sense to check Ninghu's condition. He was startled. Ninghu still had some vitality in him. He wasn't dead yet. Lu Yi could not help but exclaim that Ninghu was a Spirit Sea realm warrior after all. As Ji Hao prepared to keep attacking like this to wear Ninghu to death, Ninghu suddenly pounced on Ji Hao from the raging fire. At this moment, Ninggu could only follow his instinct. Killing Lu Yi was his instinct to protect himself. The only thought he had left was that if he didn't kill Lu Yi, he would die soon. Oh no! King Gongwu thought that the battle was over. Seeing Ninghu's actions, he was shocked and wanted to stop him. 6 Origin Spirit Lock. Lu Yi roared. Ninghu's divine will had been broken, and he could not use his divine will to attack like before. Therefore, as long as he could take him down with the 6 Origin Spirit Lock, he would be able to win. But before that, he had to think of a way to stay alive in front of the furious Ninghu. He continued to throw out the Fire Spirit Rock. Along with the powerful impact, it still could not stop a Spirit Sea Realm warrior. King Gongwu blocked Lu Ye's path and delayed him for a while. Lu Yi quickly took out formation flags and threw them in all directions. At the same time, he activated his spiritual energy to connect the formation flags, and a core spiritual inscription appeared on them. King Gongwu was sent flying. Ninghu pounced on Lu Yi like a cheetah pouncing on its prey. Before he arrived, he had already clawed at Lu Yi. As Lu Yi slashed forward with his saber, he borrowed the force of the attack to retreat. Ninghu landed on the ground. However, before he could launch a second attack, Lu Yi had already activated the power of the formation. Suddenly, a visible light curtain rose and turned into a transparent semicircle, trapping Ninghu inside. Ninghu pounced but was stopped by the light curtain. He was so angry that he roared like an injured beast. His frenzied attacks made the light curtain of the trapping formation dim at a speed visible to the naked eye. The great saint of human Tao, domain name such a trapping formation could only trap him for a second. Many figures landed in all directions. They were the members of the A3 team. It was the same as when they first saw Ninghu on the lake. Everyone was injured, and a few of them had lost the ability to fight. However, they had no problem using their 6 Origins Spirit Lock. Almost at the moment when Lu Ye's trapping formation was broken, the 6 Origins Spirit Lock came into effect. In an instant, Lu Ye's spiritual energy was sealed. Ninghu, who had finally reached Lu Yi, was kicked back. With his divine will broken and his spiritual energy sealed, Ninghu's physical body, which had been cultivating for his whole life, was limited. Naturally, he could not block Lu Ye's kick. Just as he flew into the air, 2 dragon binding ropes were released. When he landed, he was tied up like a dumpling. Saber! King Gongwu stretched out his hand to Lu Yi. Lu Yi understood tacitly and tossed his magic tool long saber over. King Gongwu strode forward and arrived in front of Ninghu in a flash. He stabbed his Dharma weapon into Ninghu's heart. The original mission for this trip was to bring Ninghu back to Grand Sky City alive, but many unforeseen events had occurred, and the target of the mission had changed from a true Lake Realm 9th Order to a 2nd Order Divine Sea Realm. Naturally, they couldn't leave him alive. Who knew what would happen next? If Ninghu managed to break free again, all their previous efforts would be in vain. Facing such a situation, they could only kill him to prevent future troubles. As the long saber pierced through his body, Ninghu, who was struggling madly, felt as if he was struck by a lightning talisman. He instinctively smashed his head into King Gongwu's head. King Gongwu staggered back and pulled out his Dharma weapon. Blood gushed out from Ninghu's heart like a fountain. Maybe it was the final radiance of the setting sun, or maybe it was the headbutt that gave him a brief moment of clarity. He raised his eyes and looked at an Mo Feng, who had been standing there since the beginning of the battle as if he had lost his mind. A look of disappointment flashed across his cloudy eyes. He slowly turned his head and took one last look at the scenery that had accompanied him for decades. He sighed. The foundation of our ancestors for hundreds of years is going to be ruined in the end. Then he looked at Lu Yi and nodded slightly. You're good. As soon as he finished speaking, he fell on his back and died. The whole place was silent. Only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. Captain, is he dead? After a long time, Xiao Ruiyun asked with a pale face. His spiritual energy was in a mess and he could barely maintain his 6 Origins Spirit Lock. King Gongwu turned his head and spat out a mouthful of blood. He's not dead. Xiao Ruiyun's face turned bitter. Captain, I'm not asking you. I'm asking if he's dead. King Gongwu glared at him. My saber pierced his heart. Do you think he's dead or not? He casually threw the blood-stained saber back to Lu Yi. Hearing him say that, the members of the team suddenly relaxed. They were all exhausted and sat on the ground. King Gongwu looked at Lu Yi. Are you okay? Lu Yi shook off the blood on his saber and sheathed it. He slowly shook his head. I'll be on guard. Everyone heal yourselves. Among the people present, he was the one with the lightest injuries. It was his duty to be on guard. Thank you. The injuries of the A3 team varied. Fortunately, no one died. However, the Immortal Dawn Mountains suffered a great loss this time. Not to mention the fact that the Great Elder, Ning Hu, was a spy from the Myriad Devil Ridge. Even the few true Lake Stage elders who stayed behind died in the battle. As for the other disciples who were killed by Ning Hu, there were at least a dozen of them. Although this was not enough to cause serious damage to a rank 4 sect, it was still a great loss. The few true Lake Stage elders who were still alive all sent people to comfort the disciples. They also organized people to treat the injured and clean up the battlefield. They were extremely busy. At this moment, the sect leader of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, and Mofeng, suddenly staggered. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell on his back. Sect leader! A true Lake Stage elder turned pale with fright and went forward to investigate. Once again it was chaos. Suddenly, there was a clear sound of a sword. Then, a ray of sword light landed on the battlefield. The sword light disappeared, revealing a short old man. He was emitting a powerful aura. It was obvious that he was a Divine Sea Stage cultivator. The Divine Sea Stage cultivators from the Law Department had arrived. But they seemed to be a little late. What's going on? The short old man turned his head and looked around. He was confused for a moment. After receiving the news, he rushed here. He thought that he would definitely see a one-sided massacre here, or that the spy from Myriad Demon's Ridge had already escaped. But now, it seemed that the situation was a little different from what he had imagined. A shocking battle had taken place here, and there were traces of spiritual energy explosions everywhere. Many people had died, especially the skinny figure with a knife wound on his chest. He took 2 steps forward to take a look. The short old man was shocked. Ning Hu! It was the spy from the Myriad Devil Ridge who had reached the Divine Sea Stage. The great sage of human Tao, but he was dead. Chapter 904. As the leader of the enforcement team, King Gongwu didn't have time to rest when he saw the old sword cultivator. He quickly got up and reported the matter. The short old man was shocked when he heard this. He never thought that these people would be able to kill a second-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator. Even though he couldn't believe it, the truth was right in front of him. However, there were still many doubts about today's matter. The short old man thought for a moment, then clapped his hands and tapped on his battlefield mark to send a message. At the same time, thousands of miles away, a ray of light shot towards the Immortal Dawn Mountain like a rainbow. Its speed was as fast as lightning. The figure wrapped in the stream of light was the Law Department head, Gon Wudang. At this moment, Gon Wudang no longer had his usual frivolous look. His face was solemn. Who would have thought that the great elder of the Immortal Dawn Mountain, Ning Hu, was not only a spy of the Myriad Demon's Ridge, but also a second-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator. He had never been exposed for so many years. Plus, he had been living in seclusion for so many years. Not many people had even seen him, which led to such a serious error in the intelligence report. When Gon Wudang received the news, he immediately had a thought in his mind. He was finished. This time, it wasn't just Nian Yuxian who was going to break his skull. Even Shui Yuan was going to come too. How could he be a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator? He quickly mobilized the nearby Spirit Sea Realm cultivators to support him. At the same time, he left Grand Sky City and rushed towards the Immortal Dawn Mountain. After so many years as the Law Department head, this was the first time he left Grand Sky City because there was nothing that required him to do personally. But this time, it was different. Lu Ye was in the A3 team. If something happened to him, Gon Wudang would have a hard time in the future. However, Grand Sky City was far from the Immortal Dawn Mountain road. Even if he was a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, he couldn't rush there immediately even if he pushed his speed to the limit. He could only pray in his heart that nothing happened to Lui. Halfway through his flight, he suddenly received a message. Gon Wudang quickly checked it. His heart was in his throat, afraid that he would see something he didn't want to see. But after a moment, his body suddenly stopped in midair. His expression became strange as he quickly sent a message back. "Are you sure Ning Hu was killed?" This old man saw it with his own eyes. Ning Hu's vitality dissipated. The old sword cultivator replied. But what puzzled him was that Ning Hu seemed to have been burned by a fire before he died. All the hair on his body was gone, and even the skin that was exposed to the air was charred. Then he reported everything he knew to Qian Wudong. He exhaled heavily and said to himself, "The deity-vanquishing sword has appeared. What about the soul-severing sword?" Back then, this sword and saber had left an indelible psychological shadow on many divine sea-level cultivators in the Devil Ridge. Qian Wudong shook his head and turned back. In the immortal Dawn Mountain, the disciples suppressed their grief. Under the command of the true Lake Realm elders, they cleaned up the battlefield and cleaned up the corpses of their fellow disciples. Lu Yi and the others were also sent to a spirit mountain to recuperate. The old man didn't leave. Instead, he stayed. King Gongwu couldn't help but feel strange. Logically speaking, there was no reason for First Effect Ke Yicheo to stay and look after them when he saw them leave without a trace. Moreover, the matter here was basically settled. All that was left was for them to recuperate and report back to Grand Sky City. However, if the old man wanted to stay, King Gongwu couldn't say anything. Moreover, this was the territory of the immortal Dawn Mountain. Among the group, Lu Ye's injuries were the lightest. Coupled with his strong body and vigorous vitality, he recovered the fastest. It only took him a day to recover. On the Spirit Mountain, in the pavilion outside the courtyard, Lu Yi took out the deity-vanquishing sword and examined it. This worldly treasure played a miraculous role in the battle against Ning Hu. If it wasn't for its sudden burst of power, he wouldn't have been able to break through Ning Hu's divine sense. Even though he also had a soul and spiritual will, he was different from the normal spirit sea realm cultivators. He had taken an unorthodox path. Therefore, unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't dare to use his divine sense to fight against a divine sea realm cultivator. This was also the reason why he didn't use his divine sense in the previous battle. It wasn't because he wanted to hide it, but because he had scruples. After the deity-vanquishing sword's power was activated, it seemed to have undergone some changes. On the surface, it still looked like a transparent, colorless sword that was only the length of a finger. However, the deity-vanquishing sword had a little spiritual light flowing within it. Now it was gone. The spiritual light had been activated by the deity-vanquishing sword and blasted into Ning Hu's divine sea. Although Lu Yi knew that worldly treasures were mostly one-time use items, he still felt that it was a pity. After all, it cost him 26,000 battle points to exchange for it from the War Merit Pavilion. He didn't know if the gains from this trip could make up for his loss. "I think it should be enough, right?" Suddenly, a shadow fell in front of him. Lu Yi was shocked. He instinctively leaped back and drew his sword. When he looked again, he saw that it was the old sword cultivator. He was standing in the same spot and looking at him with a smile. "Don't be nervous, kid. I mean you no harm. I have some history with your sect master." Lu Yi said cautiously, "Senior, are you talking about a friendship or a grudge?" The old sword cultivator laughed. "It seems like you know your sect master well." Lu Yi said nothing. This old man seemed to have many friends, but he also had many enemies. He had to be on his guard. It doesn't matter if it's a friendship or a grudge. However, the matters of the older generation should be dealt with by the older generation. It has nothing to do with the younger generation. The old sword cultivator didn't give a clear answer. Lu Yi understood. Even if this old man had some history with the sect master, they probably didn't get along well. As for what he said about the matters of the older generation being dealt with by the older generation, he might be such a person, but others might not be. Lu Yi didn't forget that when he was rushing to Grand Heaven City from the Blue Blood sect, he encountered many things along the way. If it weren't for his second senior apprentice sister secretly protecting him, he probably wouldn't have been able to issue orders within the time limit. If he couldn't issue orders, then it would be Wei Lu Mountain. Obviously, it was an expert who had a grudge against the Blue Blood sect. Lu Yi still didn't know who was behind the scenes. Perhaps he would never know. Can you let this old man see the thing in your hand? The old sword cultivator asked. Lu Yi naturally didn't want to, but the difference in cultivation base was obvious. He couldn't win against the old man, so he threw the deity vanquishing sword over. He said casually, "This thing has lost its power and is useless. It's just that its quality is a little special. It was quite good to use as an imperial tool. It really is the deity vanquishing sword." The old man's words startled Lu Yi. "Senior, you recognize this thing?" It didn't make sense. This thing was exchanged in the War Merit Pavilion. He went to the Tianji treasure vault to look for it, but he didn't find the deity vanquishing sword. How did this old man know about a treasure unique to the War Merit Pavilion? "I recognize it." The old man nodded. "But I haven't seen it for decades. When Tang Yifeng passed this thing to you, didn't he tell you how to use it? What does it have to do with the sect master?" Lu Yi was suspicious and slowly shook his head. "Told." The old man laughed and threw the deity vanquishing sword back to Lu Yi. "Although I don't know the mystery of this thing, it's not a one-time treasure. It can be used many times. Decades ago, it was a treasure in the hands of your eldest senior apprentice brother. It was a killing weapon that made the divine sea realm in myriad demons ridge tremble in fear. Now that it's in your hands, I hope you won't bury its reputation." Chapter 905. The old sword cultivator had already left. The reason why he showed up was probably because he wanted to see the deity vanquishing sword with his own eyes. However, Lu Yi could not calm down for a long time. Compared to what the old man said about the deity vanquishing sword not being a one-time use rare treasure, Lu Yi was more concerned about the fact that he mentioned his eldest senior brother. Lu Yi actually didn't know much about the eldest senior brother that he had never met, but he knew that his eldest senior brother was truly a stunning talent, a peerless figure that only appeared once in 10,000 years. Back then, the Jade Blood sect rose because of him, but also fell because of him. The poison left behind decades ago still lingered. His eldest senior brother once had the deity vanquishing sword. In other words, the person who entered the War Merit Pavilion before him was indeed his eldest senior brother. Lu Yi actually had some guesses about this because when he first entered the War Merit Pavilion, the two dragons had said that no one had entered the War Merit Pavilion for decades. Who could be more amazing than his eldest senior brother a few decades ago? Other than him, who else was qualified to enter the War Merit Pavilion? A few decades ago, the deity vanquishing sword was in his eldest senior brother's hands. A few decades later, this item was in his hands. That was why the old sword cultivator had the illusion that this item belonged to the Jade Blood sect. A few thousand years after his eldest senior brother's death, the sect master passed it to him. Naturally, Lu Yi wouldn't try to explain the misunderstanding that had arisen. But this item was not a one-time use rare treasure. What did it mean? The spiritual light within the deity vanquishing sword had been activated. Now, the deity vanquishing sword was indeed made of a special material. Lu Yi originally intended to use it as a royal equipment. However, the old sword cultivator's words made Lu Yi think of a possibility. Since he was in another sect, it was inconvenient for him to verify it, so he put this item aside for now. King Gongwu and the others would probably need to rest for a few more days. The current environment was not suitable for cultivation, and it was not convenient for him to activate the talent tree to devour the fire spirit right. Lu Yi simply closed his eyes and focused, imprinting the soaring dragon's origin. He searched for the brightest light in the endless sea of stars and followed the peak powerhouses of the soaring dragon realm to experience their magnificent lives. For some reason, when Lu Yi imprinted the soaring dragon's origin this time, he felt a little different from before. However, he could not pinpoint exactly what was different about it. But soon, a huge surprise fell on his head. Because this time, the imprinted target. Tears streamed down Lu Ye's face. It wasn't easy. Since he had obtained the dragon soaring realm's broken source, he had the ability to imprint. Up until now, he had imprinted at least 80, if not 100, essences of powerful cultivators from various factions. There were even quite a few sword cultivators. This was because it was very easy for sword cultivators to appear among them. This caused the essences left behind by those sword cultivators to be even brighter, making it easier for Lu Yi to choose. After imprinting so many essences and witnessing the cultivation of so many experts from so many different factions and eras, Lu Yi now had expertise in every faction. When he transformed into Fierce Bull and cast spells, even Endless Shadow, who had spent a lot of time with him, couldn't see any flaws. Back when Pan Shandao was upgraded, he used his long spear to fight against Feng Ruli. Feng Ruli was beaten to the point of doubting his life. However, he had not met a single weapon cultivator who used sabers. This had become an obsession in Lu Ye's heart. Finally, today, the bitterness was over and the sweetness was about to come. He quickly immersed his mind and followed this saber-wielding weapon cultivator as he cultivated and grew. Time passed. When Lu Yi opened his eyes, they shone brightly. Obviously, he had gained a lot. This time, the target he chose to imprint was also at the peak of the Divine Sea realm. His life's cultivation was a rare treasure for Lu Yi. The only imperfection was that this expert's path was somewhat different from Lu Ye's. Lu Ye's personality was more compatible with the tyrannical and violent saber techniques of the Tyrant Saber technique. The saber of this expert from the Soaring Dragon realm was more agile. However, the stone of another mountain could be used to polish the jade. Cultivating until now, Lu Yi had his own perseverance and style. Naturally, he would not be easily influenced by others. Learning from other people's cultivation experience and strengthening his own foundation was the way to go. How long has it been? Lu Yi asked. Every time he imprinted the Dragon Soaring Realm's essences, he would record the time. Because as his cultivation improved and his spirit grew stronger, the time it took to imprint was also slowly decreasing. At first, it took Lu Yi 2 or 3 days to imprint the essences, but last time, it only took less than a day. This was growth. 4 hours, Yi, who was hiding in Hu Po's body, quietly replied. Lu Yi was slightly surprised and then overjoyed. So, this was what he felt strange about. He had a strange feeling just now. He felt that the Dragon Soaring Realm's essences today was a little different from before, but he could not pinpoint the specific difference. It was only now that he was sure of one thing. The time it took for him to imprint the essences was greatly reduced. This should not be just because he had advanced to the true lake realm. The most important reason was that he had developed spiritual sense. Imprinting the essences consumed the power of his spirit. Now that he had developed a soul body and developed spiritual sense, the efficiency was naturally greatly increased. Perhaps one day, he could reach the level where he could imprint the essences left behind by those experts in his heart with just a thought. When that time came, he could imprint the Dragon Soaring Realm's essences anytime, anywhere, and quickly absorb its nutrients. He could gather the strengths of hundreds of schools and eliminate the impurities. Imprinting the many insights of that expert in saber techniques churned in his heart. Lu Yi stood up and landed in the air. He pulled out the long saber at his waist and danced as he wished. In an instant, spiritual energy surged and saber light flashed. This time's imprinting allowed him to make a huge breakthrough in his saber techniques. Although his cultivation did not increase at all, his means of dealing with enemies had greatly improved. Suddenly, Lu Ye's figure froze and his long saber slashed forward in a domineering manner. At this moment, Lu Yi felt as if he was in an endless starry sky with a crescent moon hanging high behind him. From this crescent moon, endless crescent-like saber lights fell down. The sound of the air being torn apart rang out incessantly. The crescent-shaped blade gleams contained an extremely shocking amount of killing power, cutting huge gullies in the ground all around. Even the entire Spirit Mountain shook. Tyrant Saber Art's second form, Crescent Moon. The inheritance of the Tyrant Saber Art was hidden in an inconspicuous black stone. By immersing one's soul into it, one could obtain its true inheritance. When Lu Yi obtained the inheritance, he had comprehended the first form, Vast Star. At that time, he was only a 6th-order Cloud River Realm cultivator. After such a long time, he had already mastered the first form. In his spare time, he had also tried to comprehend the second form of the Tyrant Saber Art, but his gains were not great. Until today, After imprinting the life of that master in the soaring dragon realm and absorbing the essence and philosophy of this master's saber techniques, Lu Yi was finally able to fully display the second form. Compared to the first form, Vast Star, the second form, Crescent Moon, was undoubtedly more lethal. Moreover, this saber seemed to be suitable for fighting against many enemies at once. However, the consumption was also greater. After displaying this saber, Lu Ye's arms were slightly sore and his blood was boiling. One had to know that he was now in the true lake realm, yet this saber strike consumed so much of his Saint Chi. Now it seemed that the reason he could not comprehend the second form when he was in the Cloud River realm was not because his perception was insufficient, but because his cultivation was insufficient. Now that he was in the true lake realm, everything fell into place naturally. The first form was named after the star, the second form was named after the moon, and Lu Yi roughly understood what the third form was. It must be named after the sun. However, he did not try to comprehend the third style. After this experience, Lu Yi understood one thing. If one's cultivation was not high enough, comprehending it would not be of much use. It would be better to imprint the origin of the dragon soaring realm's powerhouses. If he was lucky, he might encounter a powerhouse with the saber. The huge commotion here immediately alarmed King Gung Wu and the others who were recuperating in various rooms in the small courtyard. With the sound of something breaking through the air, figures appeared one after another. Turning their heads to take a look, they realized that it was not an enemy attack, but Lu Yi practicing his saber here. Looking at the mess all around, Xiao Ruiyun could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Oh my God! Such a scene was caused by a first-order true lake realm cultivator? The ground was covered in deep gullies that were 3 feet deep and several meters long. Not far away, there were huge saber marks left on the mountain walls. Even if he was a fifth-order true lake realm cultivator, he would not be able to leave such a mark. Moreover, he was a senior captain. Xiao Ruiyun did not forget that he wanted to suppress Lu Yi with his military rank yesterday, but was suppressed instead. Of course, it was just a loss of face. He did not hold a grudge. In fact, after the incident, he was a little grateful to Lu Yi. Because no matter what, the mission this time was more than completed. The rewards would definitely not be small. The others were also shocked and looked at Lu Yi as if they were looking at a monster. Since you are all out, let's return to Grand Sky City to report, King Gongwu said. Originally, they still needed to recuperate for a few days and wait for their injuries to recover. But recuperating here was fine, and returning to Grand Sky City was also fine. The sooner they reported back, the sooner they could receive the rewards. You are the captain, you have the final say. Xiao Ruiyun shrugged indifferently. The others did not have any objections. Then let's go. As King Gongwu spoke, he directly summoned the spirit boat. It seemed that he was not going to greet the Immortal Dawn Mountain. In fact, there was no need to greet them. The Immortal Dawn Mountain was a mess and they were already very busy. There was no one to take care of them. Among them, Lu Yi was in the best condition. The task of steering the spirit boat fell to him. Lu Yi had no objections. Soon, the spirit boat rose and broke through the sky. The old sword cultivator hiding in the dark saw this scene from afar. He sent a message to Qian Wudang to report the situation here and quickly left. On the way back, King Gongwu had the time to thank Lu Yi. Junior brother Lu, this mission is all thanks to you. If you did not turn the tide, our mission would have definitely failed. At that time, not to mention the reward for completing the mission, even the injuries they suffered before would have been in vain. Since we are members of the team, we should do our best. I heard that someone tried to stop you before. King Gongwu glared at Xiao Ruiyun as he spoke. He did not know what happened when he was unconscious. He only heard about it from Mu Zheng. Chapter 906. After being glared at by King Gongwu, Xiao Ruiyun immediately stood up and bowed to Lu Yi. Junior brother Lu, I was a snob. Please don't lower yourself to my level. He was a fifth-order true lake realm cultivator. His humble attitude showed his sincerity. Moreover, Lu Yi had no grudge with him. It was just a conflict of ideas. Naturally, he wouldn't hold it against him. Senior brother, you're too serious. I'm used to being alone. Plus, there were some things that were not easy to explain. Senior brother, you stopped me out of good intentions. Xiao Ruiyun grinned at Lu Yi. Junior brother Lu, you know how to talk. As for what Lu Yi said about some things that were not easy to explain, he was probably referring to the treasure that could break Ning Hu's divine sense. After all, they had never seen such a thing before. Even if Lu Yi said he had such a treasure, it might not be of much use. Considering the gap between their strength and Ning Hu's, no one would count on a treasure that they had never heard of. What are you laughing at? King Gung Wu scolded with a straight face. The law enforcement team will advance and retreat together when carrying out a mission. We live and die together. This is the rule set by the Law Division in the early years. What makes me angry is not that you stopped Junior Brother Lu, but that when Junior Brother Lu took action, you all did not follow him immediately. Sweeping his gaze across, everyone lowered their heads in shame. When Lu Yi rushed to the depths of the immortal Dawn Mountain, they did not follow him immediately. Coincidentally, King Gung Wu woke up at that time. After learning about the situation, he immediately rushed over with everyone. When the captain scolded his team, Lu Yi naturally did not interrupt. King Gung Wu scolded them again and said, Junior brother Lu deserves the most credit for the completion of this mission. I will report this matter in detail when I return to Grand Sky City. I will also ask the division chief to ask Heaven's Secret to deduct half of your reward from this mission and give it to Junior brother Lu. What? Lu Yi was stunned. After the Lonely Mountain City siege, Thought Moon Immortal seemed to have asked Heaven's Secret to give him a large amount of merit. Thinking back to his experience in the Soaring Dragon realm, Lu Yi had a deeper understanding of Heaven's Secret in the 9 states. Of course, even if it's all given to Junior brother Lu, I have no objection. Xiao Ruiyun nodded seriously. Then your reward will be deducted, King Gung Wu said. Please don't. Xiao Ruiyun immediately with a bitter face. I'm just saying it casually, please don't take it seriously. At the side, Mu Jing could not help but burst into laughter, only to let out another shriek of pain as her injuries were aggravated. The others couldn't help but laugh as well. The solemn atmosphere became lively. Lu, Junior brother Lu, are you interested in Junior brother Lu? Lu, Junior Lu. Interested? Originally, King Gung Wu only recruited Lu Ye's men under the orders of the minister. However, after this mission, King Gung Wu realized that although Lu Ye's cultivation was low, he was very capable. Not to mention the treasure that could break through the spirit sense of a Spirit Sea realm cultivator, even the weapon that could explode could be used by the team in the future. At the very least, when they were surrounded, the weapon would be very effective. And Lu Ye's ability to quickly arrange a spirit array. At that time, the crazy Ning who was trapped by Lu Ye's temporary trap formation, which gave them the chance to activate the 6 Origins spirit restricting lock. Yang Kai wasn't clear about Lu Ye's strength as he hadn't seen much of it during this mission, but he had seen the traces of Lu Ye's saber art. It was definitely not something an ordinary first-order true lake realm cultivator could achieve. Team 3 hadn't been replenished. One reason was the lack of manpower in the Law Division. Another reason was that King Gung Wu had his own vision. He wouldn't accept just anyone. If he chose someone who couldn't work well with the rest of the team, he might as well not choose. But if it was Lu Yi, he would have no problem. Senior brother, I appreciate your kindness. To be honest, I just reached the True Lake realm not long ago. I'm not familiar with the situation here. King Gung Wu nodded. He understood Lu Ye's meaning and didn't force him. Take your time, don't be too anxious. Time flew by as they chatted along the way. They rested twice in the middle of the mission. The next day, the huge Grand Sky City finally came into view. King Gung Wu had to go to the Law Division to personally report the details of the mission. The others had yet to recover from their injuries, so they dispersed to treat their wounds. Lu Yi also found an ownerless house and walked in. There was one thing that was on his mind. The old sword cultivator said that the deity vanquishing sword wasn't a one-time use treasure. Since it wasn't a one-time use treasure, it didn't make sense that it would lose its power after one use. What he needed to do now was to find a way to restore its power. The only thing Lu Yi could think of was to infuse his divine sense into it. He couldn't use his divine sense casually when there were people around him. Now that he was hiding in his house, he could do whatever he wanted. However, after a series of attempts, he was exhausted and his divine sense was almost exhausted. Yet he still couldn't restore the power of the deity vanquishing sword. On the other side, at the Law Division, King Gongwu reported all the details of the mission to Qian Wudong without missing anything. He also brought up his request to deduct half of everyone's reward and give it to Lu Yi. Qian Wudong listened quietly and nodded. "I'm glad that you took the initiative to bring this up. I didn't misjudge you. All right, you haven't recovered yet. Go and rest." King Gongwu didn't leave immediately. Instead, he said, "Master, junior brother Lu is a great talent." "Yes, so what? If I can use such a great talent, I will be invincible in future missions." King Gongwu clenched his fist and waved his hand excitedly. He looked like he was going to conquer the world if he could get Lu Yi. Qian Wudong felt a little uneasy. "Just tell me what you want to do." "Master, please transfer someone from the front line. My team is still lacking a member." After 3 breaths, King Gongwu flew out of the hall with a weird cry. He almost crashed into a passerby. Landing on the ground, he scratched his head in confusion. "If you don't agree, then don't agree. Why are you so angry?" The master's divine sense transmitted into his ears. "You must keep this mission a secret. Other than your team, don't tell anyone else." "Yes, master." King Gongwu quickly cupped his fist and replied. In the hall, Qian Wudong snorted and sat down slowly. Transferring Lu Yi from the front line? What a joke! If Lu Yi belonged to another mountain pass, the Law Division Master would only need to say a word to transfer him. Those mountain pass masters would definitely give him face. However, Lu Yi was now in the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass and was the only soldier under that woman's command. If he wanted to transfer someone from that woman's command, he, Qian Wudong, would lose his skull. When Lu Yi came to Grand Sky City, he was only in the 9th Order Cloud River realm. If Qian Wudong was in the True Lake realm at that time, he could have recruited him into the Law Division. However, the difference of one realm made him miss such a great opportunity and allowed Nian Yuxian to take advantage of it. However, after this experience, Qian Wudong would be able to borrow soldiers from Nian Yuxian in the future. If he borrowed too many times, even if he wasn't on the same side, he would become one of them. Qian Wudong was calculating in his heart. Initially, he asked King Gongwu to recruit Lu Ye's men with the intention of letting Lu Yi gain some benefits. After all, the Vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass had been peaceful for a long time, and Lu Yi wouldn't be able to gain much merit there. Who would have thought that such a huge surprise would happen, and it really made him interested in Lu Yi. Transferring people was impossible for the time being, but Lu Yi could use some of his methods. Thinking of this, Qian Wudong shouted, "Men! Why couldn't it work?" In the secret room, Lu Yi looked at the deity vanquishing sword in his hand with a puzzled expression. According to his idea, if he wanted to replenish the power of the deity vanquishing sword, he should pour his divine sense into it. Shui Yuan's face softened a bit. "That's good. I won't interfere in the fight between peers. But if anyone bullies the weak because of their seniority, you must tell me." Second senior sister was still so reliable. Lu Yi quickly said, "Got it." He clicked to download the best book-chasing app. Many readers used it to read books aloud. Back then, he had only spent 26,000 battle achievements to exchange for the deity vanquishing sword. At that time, he had thought that it was a bargain. After all, a single tracking disc was worth 30,000 battle merits. The deity vanquishing sword was a rare treasure that could pose a threat to Spirit Sea realm cultivators. Only now did he realize that this was a trap. The deity vanquishing sword itself was not that expensive. In fact, it gave Lu Yi the illusion that he had picked up a great bargain. However, the cost of using it was not small. The high and mighty heavenly secret gave Lu Yi the impression of a profiteer. However, on second thought, there was a reason why it was so expensive. Take this time as an example. If the deity vanquishing sword had not broken Ning Hu's divine thought by surprise, the A3 team would not have been able to take him down. There might even have been a large number of casualties. The tracking disc was already worth 30,000 battle merits. A rare treasure that could pose a threat to Spirit Sea Realm cultivators should not be cheaper than the tracking disc. Although the battle merits were good, they were nothing compared to a treasure that could save one's life at a critical moment. Lu Yi had spent 180,000 battle merits to exchange for the soul-suppressing pagoda. Was it not to save his own life in front of a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator? This time, he had encountered Ninghu. Who knew what other Spirit Sea Realm cultivators he would encounter next time? Hence, no matter what, the deity vanquishing sword's power had to be replenished. He gritted his teeth and chose to replenish it. In the next instant, the stone platform shone brightly. The deity vanquishing sword was engulfed by the light. After a dozen breaths, when the light faded, Lu Yi raised his hand and took out the deity vanquishing sword. He noticed that this rare treasure's transparent blade had an additional spiritual light. The deity vanquishing sword's power had been replenished. Lu Ye's heart was bleeding. He did not have the mood to stay here any longer. He put away the deity vanquishing sword and left the War Merit Pavilion under the earnest advice of the two flood dragons. After walking out of the divine secret hall, Lu Yi looked up at the sky. Just as he was about to return to the vicissitude Flame Mountain Pass, a ray of light suddenly landed in front of him. The person cupped his fist and said, "Are you Lu Yi, fellow cultivator Lu?" "That's right." Lu Yi nodded. "You are, I am the law commander. The head of the law department has ordered fellow cultivator Lu to meet him immediately." "Lord Chen Wudong?" Lu Yi was surprised. He did not know why this person was looking for him. The person nodded. "Fellow cultivator Lu, if there's nothing else, please go now. Lead the way." Although Lu Yi did not know why Chen Wudong was looking for him, it definitely had something to do with this mission. "The explosive power is quite impressive." Lu Yi nodded. "Yes, there is such a thing. Can I see it?" Chen Wudong reached out his hand with a smile. "You've already stretched out your hand, how could I not show it to you?" As long as he spat out a single word of no, this hand would probably turn into a slap. Moreover, there was nothing shameful about it. Lu Yi took out a fire spirit rock and marked it with explosive spiritual runes. Then he handed it over. Chen Wudong took it and studied it carefully. Then he began to exert force. "Sir, please be careful. This thing." Lu Yi wanted to remind Chen Wudong not to use too much force in case the explosive spiritual runes were triggered. However, before he could finish, the fire spirit rock in Chen Wudong's hand exploded. However, there was no explosion. The dazzling fire was condensed between Chen Wudong's fingers. Because it was too compressed, the fire looked like a small sun. After the shockwave dissipated, Chen Wudong looked up and smiled at Lu Yi. "What's wrong with this thing?" "Nothing." What else could Lu Yi say? Chen Wudong was a divine ocean realm cultivator. An explosive fire spirit rock could not hurt him. Even the shockwave was controlled by his fingers. "Did you make this yourself?" Chen Wudong asked. Lu Yi's movements were so fast that even Chen Wudong didn't notice anything amiss. "Good," Chen Wudong praised. To tell you the truth, many years ago, a spiritual tattooist discovered the magical effect of combining the fire spirit rock and the explosive spiritual runes. This thing also appeared in the front line of the war between the two sides. Used. Lu Yi caught the keyword. He was not surprised that this method had been discovered long ago. It was not a whimsical idea, but a simple combination of spiritual stones and spiritual tattoos. Since ancient times, there had been so many spiritual tattooists, so it was natural that someone had discovered it earlier than him. Yes, but too many people died. Later on, no one made it. Too many spiritual tattooists died. Lu Yi grasped the key point immediately. Chen Wudong nodded. The fire spirit rock is not stable. There is a risk of failure when constructing the spiritual runes. No matter how skilled a spiritual tattooist is, he or she cannot guarantee that he or she will succeed. According to the information I got, you are a spiritual tattooist. So you should know what will happen if someone fails to construct the explosive spiritual runes in the fire spirit rock. Once the spiritual runes fail, the spiritual energy in the fire spirit rock will go berserk. Then it will cause an explosion. Brother Shen. Yes. Shen Zhangqing walked on the road. When he met people he knew, he would greet them or nod to them. But no matter who it was, no one had any extra expression on their faces. It was as if they were indifferent to everything. To this, Shen Zhangqing was used to it. Seeing that Lu Yi was about to walk out of the ear palace, he hurriedly said. Lu Yi turned around and raised his hand. He opened his hand and flipped it over. You little bastard! How dare you ask for so much? Qian Wudong was furious. He was the head of the law department, in charge of the laws of the prefecture guards. His words were like a mountain. Since when did anyone dare to bargain with him? He glared at Lu Yi and softened his tone. Kid, you should know that you're a member of the prefecture guards. The things you refine can improve the strength of the prefecture guards. When the prefecture guards get stronger, you can benefit from it. Sir, I know that. But if you want the horse to run, you have to feed the horse. Although I'm the head of the law department, I have to put the law department and the prefecture guards first. I can't accept your price. Raise the price on the spot and return the money as the fall. That's how business works. You little bastard. Qian Wudong gritted his teeth. 3 points. 1 spiritual stone is 3 points. You can earn 3,000 points a day. That's 90,000 points a month. Lu Yi shook his head. Milord, let's not talk about the risks involved in refining this item for now. It will take a lot of time and delay my cultivation. I sacrificed my future for the sake of the prefectural guard. Milord, you can't let me suffer a loss. I want battle points to buy the golden spirit lot to make up for my lagging cultivation progress. How can a golden spirit lot that costs 90,000 battle points a month make up for it? Qian Wudong thought that it made sense. He sighed. 5 points. That's my limit. Any more and we won't talk. Let's make a Tianji contract. Lu Yi agreed without hesitation. 5 points for an explosive fire spiritual stone was the price he expected. You're so sure that you can complete the task? Qian Wudong looked at him suspiciously. You should know that once you make a Tianji contract, you'll be punished if you can't complete the task. That's my business. Sir, just wait and see. Since you're so confident, I'll do as you wish. Qian Wudong waved his hand and a blank Tianji contract fell down with a golden light. He quickly listed out the terms and conditions for Lu Yi to read. After both of them made sure there were no problems, they both left their marks. With that, the Tianji contract was made. Sir, there's one more thing I need to tell you, Lu Yi said. The Tianji contract has been made. You can't raise the price. Sir, you're underestimating me. What I want to tell you is that there's a loss when making this thing. I know that, but the loss rate can't be more than 30%. Lu Yi was overjoyed, but he pretended to be troubled. I'll try my best. Now, he didn't have to worry about the fire spiritual stones he needed for his talent tree. The loss rate couldn't be more than 30%. In other words, he could pocket 30% of the stones. This wasn't his original intention, but if he had a 100% success rate, he wouldn't be able to explain it to others. 70% would be the best. Sir, when can we start? Lu Yi couldn't wait. He didn't expect that this trip to Vast Sky City would not only provide him with a stable way to earn battle credits, but also fire spiritual stones. This was a great deal. If you think it's okay now, we can start now. I'll listen to you, sir. Come with me. Qian Wudong led Lu Yi out of the ear palace and flew up. He wrapped Lu Yi in his spiritual power and flew in a certain direction. Soon, they landed in a small courtyard. This is the property of the Law Division. Normally, it is used by the injured cultivators of the Law Division to recuperate. You will live here for the time being. I will have someone deliver the fire spirit stones. I will not ask about the process, only the result. In 7 days, someone will come to collect them. Lu Yi nodded. There was no problem with this arrangement. Qian Wudong soon left, leaving Lu Yi alone. He could finally come out and take a breather. The courtyard wasn't big. Lu Yi set up some arrays to guard it. As soon as he finished, there was a knock on the door. Lu Yi got up and opened the door. A cultivator he didn't know was standing outside. He handed over a storage bag. Lu Yi took it and checked it. There were 10,000 fire spiritual stones inside. He nodded. No problem. The cultivator didn't say anything. He cupped his fists and left. Qian Wudong had ordered his men to deliver 10,000 pieces of fire spiritual stones to Lu Yi, and the delivery time was 7 days later. Obviously, he had taken 30% of the cost into account. Therefore, after 7 days, Lu Yi only needed to give Qian Wudong 7,000 pieces of fire spiritual stones to complete the mission. By then, Lu Yi would have 35,000 battle achievements. This didn't include the remaining 3,000 fire spiritual stones. Lu Yi walked into the room and set up another array. Time to work. The reopening of the Cloud River battlefield meant that there would be a large number of Cloud River tier cultivators leaving the major passes at the front line. After all, for Cloud River tier cultivators, the Cloud River battlefield was their main home. Of course, not every Cloud River tier cultivator would go to the Cloud River battlefield. There was never a lack of cultivators at the major passes who thirsted for battle merits. Not to mention Cloud River tier cultivators, there were even Spirit Stream tier cultivators. After all, no matter how high one's cultivation was, as long as one joined the military state guard, they would have their own military rank and position and could receive a monthly salary. There were also things that Cloud River tier and Spirit Stream tier cultivators could do at the various major passes. Receiving a monthly salary and exchanging it for spirit sticks to cultivate, the speed of cultivation would not fall behind too much. Compared to this major event that belonged to the 9 states, something had also happened in the military state. The Ziwei Dao Palace had established a sect. On that day, they announced to the military state that they had acknowledged the Jade Blood sect as their superior sect. They had chosen 30 peaks in the Fragrant Mountain as their foundation and would help the Jade Blood sect. When the news spread, it did attract some attention. But that was all. Putting aside the fact that the Ziwei Dao Palace was a sect from the Peerless Continent, there were not many elites in the sect that could be brought out. Even the Jade Blood sect had long since lost its former glory. The combination of these two sects was like a newborn baby relying on an old man, and it did not attract much attention from those powerful forces. Fortunately, the old man had a wide network, so on the day of the Ziwei Dao Palace's opening, there were many Divine C-tier cultivators from large sects who came to congratulate them, and the scene was very lively. It also let the cultivators from the Peerless Continent of the Ziwei Dao Palace truly feel the power of the Divine C-tier. Inside the bamboo building, Lu Yi sat cross-legged, holding a fire spirit stone in each hand, urging the power of the talent tree to continuously absorb it. His expression was normal, but his heart was filled with anticipation. There was no other reason. The transformation of the talent tree seemed to be completed. It was finally going to be completed. It had been more than a month since he sensed the signs of the talent tree's transformation in the volcano of Mount Tsongyen. During this time, Lu Yi had consumed countless fire spirit stones. More than half of what he had obtained from the underground cave had been fed to the talent tree, and the consumption could be said to be incomparably huge. He had originally thought that with the harvest from the underground cave, he would no longer have to worry about the fuel for the talent tree in the future, but now it seemed that he had thought too simply. With such a large consumption, he had also become more aware of the transformation of the talent tree. Now that the transformation was imminent, he wholeheartedly devoted himself to this matter, and even put aside the matter of cultivation. Another half a day later, after consuming an unknown number of fire spirit stones and immersing his mind, the talent tree hidden in his source aperture suddenly shone brightly, its roots swaying. In an instant, Lu Yi clearly sensed the existence of the talent tree for the first time. He could not sense it before. Although the talent tree had always been hidden in his source aperture, and he could see it every time he immersed his mind, Lu Yi did not feel its existence at all. Until now, Lu Yi clearly sensed that there was a magical thing coexisting with him in his source aperture. Was the transformation complete? As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, Lu Yi was a little dumbfounded, because the talent tree suddenly shrank violently, and in the blink of an eye, turned into a ball of flame. Rather than a flame, it was more appropriate to call it a fire seed, because its shape was like a seed. That was not the end of it. The seed burned fiercely, and suddenly, the flames exploded. As the flames churned, the seed sprouted, grew, and then a big tree appeared in his vision. Lu Yi focused his mind, and only now was he finally sure that the talent tree had completed its transformation. But it did not seem to have changed much. The unlit leaves on the talent tree were still shrouded in darkness, but the lit leaves seemed to be brighter. Other than that, there was nothing special. The roots seemed to have become more lush. That's it? Lu Ye's heart sank to the bottom. He had spent a huge amount of fire spirit stones, and more than half of what he had harvested in the underground cave on the talent tree's transformation. He had worked hard for more than a month, and in the end, that's it? No, it shouldn't be like this. He immediately calmed his mind, and as expected, he soon felt something different. In the past, he could not sense the existence of the talent tree, and naturally could not sense the various things inside the talent tree. But now, it was different. He could sense the existence of this divine object itself, and through the talent tree, he could sense the various things inside. For example, the amount of fuel stored. The talent tree had just completed its transformation, so there was naturally no fuel stored inside. There was some before, but it was all used up during the transformation process. At this moment, as the power of the fire spirit stones in his hands continued to be consumed, the fuel in the talent tree also began to accumulate. Chapter 9:11. The spiritual energy in the middle grade spirit stone was quickly devoured and turned into powder that fell from Lu Ye's fingertips. Lu Yi quickly took out another one. It was still the same. After the transformation, the talent tree had the ability to devour spiritual energy from spirit stones. In the past, the talent tree could only absorb fire elemental energy, such as the earth core fire and the fire spirit stone. It would not react to non-fire elemental energy. But now, with the transformation of the talent tree, the ability of the talent tree had also changed. It was no longer limited to fire elemental energy. If a true lake-stage cultivator used a middle-grade spirit stone like this, it would last at least half a day. But in Lu Ye's hands, it only took a moment for the spiritual energy to be used up. This meant that Lu Yi could absorb the energy from the spirit stone at an incredible speed for his own use. Whether it was for cultivation or recovery, the time spent would be greatly reduced. In other words, with this method, Lu Ye's efficiency in cultivation and recovery was not something that cultivators of the same stage could compare to. It was more than 10 times faster. Because of the existence of the spirit gathering funnel, his cultivation speed was much faster than cultivators of the same stage. Now that he had this ability, his cultivation efficiency would increase by a lot. Fast cultivation speed and high efficiency meant that he could use a shorter time to reach a higher stage. For cultivators, this was simply a dream come true. But while absorbing the spiritual energy from the spirit stone, Lu Yi also noticed that the fuel stored in the talent tree was also rapidly depleting. It seemed that the fire spiritual energy stored in the talent tree was not only used to burn the impurities, but also to maintain the power of the talent tree. After all, the spiritual energy absorbed from the spirit stone was extremely pure with almost no impurities. It did not need the talent tree to burn and refine it. But the fuel stored in the talent tree was still rapidly depleting. This was undoubtedly a problem. Lu Yi did not notice this before. First, he could not detect the amount of fuel stored in the talent tree. Second, he did not have such a cultivation method. This meant that if he wanted to use the spirit stone to increase his cultivation speed in the future, he would have to consume the fire spirit stone at the same time. Lu Yi could not help but feel lucky that he made the deal with Gan Wudong in Grand Sky City. Otherwise, with the fire spirit stone in his hand, he would not be able to maintain it for long. Initially, he only needed the fire spirit rock to activate the spirit runes on the talent tree. Although he needed a lot, it was fine as long as he had enough. But now, if he needed to use it to cultivate, there would be no end to it. The spirit lot's powder gathered and twisted, turning into a golden whirlpool. Then, extremely pure and rich spirit power flowed out from it. Yi and Hoopa hurriedly sat still and inhaled the spirit power to cultivate. This spirit power didn't need any refining to become a powerful foundation. Therefore, using spirit lots to cultivate had always been a method for 9 provinces' cultivators to quickly become stronger. Lu Yi wasn't in a hurry to cultivate. Looking at the golden whirlpool in front of him, he was excited and nervous. If things were really as he thought, then the talent tree's transformation this time would be of great help to him. Taking a light breath, he raised his hand and pressed it in front of the golden whirlpool, activating the talent tree's power. Invisible roots stretched out and probed into the whirlpool in Lu Ye's perception. In the next moment, Lu Ye's expression shook. The cultivation environment created by the spirit lots was the best environment that 9 provinces' cultivators could have. However, behind the whirlpool, there was an even better environment, one that was unknown to others. Lu Yi clearly sensed that the talent tree's roots had probed into a liquid. That wasn't real liquid, but the condensation of pure spirit power. It was a power that anyone could absorb at will. In an instant, he felt as if he was floating in the clouds and his whole body was dizzy. Forcibly stabilizing his mind, he continued to activate the talent tree's power and probed deeper with his roots. However, out of his expectations, the situation this time was a little different from the previous spiritual energy whirlpool. Inside the spiritual energy whirlpool, the deeper he went, the better the environment was. However, inside the whirlpool created by the spirit lots, there didn't seem to be much difference. Thinking about it, the pure spirit power had already condensed into a liquid existence. What difference could there be? Compared to the environment inside and outside the whirlpool, the difference was at least 3 times. Lu Yi couldn't help but laugh. He pulled Yi over and fiercely kissed her on the face. "Yi, I'm rich." Yi was dumbfounded. She was in the middle of her cultivation when Lu Yi suddenly made such a move, which really made her feel at a loss. Moreover, she had been with Lu Yi day and night for several years, and they were like real family to each other. Lu Yi had never done anything too intimate with her. At most, he would sometimes pat her little head and pinch her a little. Being kissed like this was the first time. "I'm rich," Lu Yi repeated. He excitedly grabbed Hoopa beside him and fiercely kissed him. "Lan Wu." Hoopa's face was full of disgust as he struggled with all his might. Yi calmed down and noticed Lu Ye's excitement. She couldn't help but ask, "What happened?" Lu Yi didn't mention the talent tree. It was a little complicated to explain. Chapter 9:13. Because a golden spiritual stick could last for a little more than a day and a night, Lu Yi could no longer patrol every day since he started cultivating. He could only patrol every other day. Fortunately, there were no enemies in the Blue Flame Mountain Pass. As long as the Nianyu Immortal stayed here, the myriad demons Ridge would not dare to invade. The deterrence of a top ghost cultivator in the Spirit Sea realm was too great. No one knew where she would hide. If someone dared to sneak over, they would be exposed and killed by her. The transaction with the Law Division was also carried out as scheduled. The explosive fire spirit stones that Lu Yi refined while cultivating were enough to meet the requirements of the task. Time flew by, and nearly half a month later, the last of the 10 golden spiritual sticks was consumed. The golden vortex in front of him slowly disappeared, and the cultivation was over. Lu Yi opened his eyes and examined his cultivation, feeling the rapid growth in the past half a month. The benefits brought to him after the transformation of the talent tree were greater than he had expected. This was because when the roots of the talent tree reached into the golden vortex to absorb the pure and rich spiritual energy of the world inside the vortex, the efficiency was simply incomparable to that of the small funnel. At first, he thought that the 3 times difference in environment meant that the cultivation efficiency was 3 times higher. When he really started cultivating, he found that this was not the case. If the cultivation method of building the small funnel was called absorption, then the cultivation method of the talent tree's roots reaching into the world opposite the vortex was completely plundering. One was passively accepting the spiritual power flowing out of the golden vortex, and the other was actively acquiring it. There was no comparison at all. Lu Yi felt that the efficiency of his cultivation using a golden spiritual stick was more than 10 times faster than normal. Of course, the difference in the environment inside and outside the vortex was also one of the reasons for this result. Outside the vortex, there was pure spiritual power that could be directly absorbed, but inside the vortex, there was the kind of spiritual liquid that had been liquefied. In half a month, his cultivation had undergone earth-shaking changes. It could be said that since he started cultivating, he had never experienced such a terrifying speed of advancement, even in the Cloud River realm. Advancing too quickly was not necessarily a good thing. During this period of cultivation, he would occasionally enter the Mirage realm to hone himself, just to familiarize himself with the growth of his cultivation as soon as possible. The 10 golden spirit sticks he had exchanged for had been used up, and Lu Yi was not going to exchange any more golden spirit sticks for cultivation in the short term. That person had also saved her like a divine soldier descending from the heavens. Since then, she had wholeheartedly followed and served that person until he died in battle. It was the same today. Back then, that person's cultivation had also risen so quickly that it was inconceivable. She wasn't in the mood to investigate Lu Yi's secrets. Not to mention that Lu Yi was her subordinate, he had saved her life last time. Nian Yuxian couldn't possibly have any ill intentions towards Lu Yi. She was bewildered. The Blue Blood sect. Would such a monstrous genius always appear? Previously, when she heard that the great sects of Myriad Demon Ridge viewed him as a thorn in their side, she felt that Myriad Demon Ridge was making a big fuss over nothing. No matter how outstanding Lu Yi's performance in the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield was, he was still just a little guy in the Spirit Stream realm and Cloud River realm. He couldn't affect the situation of the 2 camps. But now, it seemed that there were clearly people in Myriad Demon Ridge who understood. Coupled with the previous incident, it was a bit like once bitten, twice shy. Regarding this potential danger, she had to nip it in the bud. Third Order True Lake Realm. If that was the case, she might be able to put that matter on the agenda. Level 11 originally, she had long since given up on this matter, but since her life was saved by Lu Yi, and after witnessing his miraculous methods, she couldn't help but think about it again, because if she had the help of that method, she might have a chance to succeed. And once she succeeded, her strength would definitely improve greatly. At that time, as long as she found the opportunity, she would definitely be able to kill Wan Zhonggang. As these thoughts flashed through her mind, Nian Yuxian made her decision. Dozens of kilometers away from Ash Flame Mountain Pass, Lu Yi stood still and looked in the direction of the volcanic crater. At the end of the siege of Lonely Mountain City, he was worried about Nian Yuxian's safety and chased after her. He really didn't know how the battle would turn out. But judging from the situation at that time, the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators would have no problem defending Lonely Mountain City, but there would definitely be a lot of casualties. He didn't care about the situation in Lonely Mountain City, only about the volcanic crater. There were many fire spirit stones that had yet to be mined in the underground cave, even though he now had a stable channel to obtain fire spirit stones, and he hadn't used up all the ones he plundered last time. Every time he cultivated, he would need to consume the stored fuel to activate the power of his talent tree. His current state of cultivation was basically to activate the power of his talent tree while absorbing the energy of the fire spirit stones, which consumed a lot of energy. There were still many leaves on his talent tree that hadn't been ignited, which was where he needed the fire spirit stones the most. If he didn't think of a way to get more income, sooner or later, he would run out of money. Let's go take a look. Even though he didn't think there was much hope, there might be some gains. There was no loss in taking a look. Previously, he was busy cultivating and didn't have time to think about this. Now that he had this thought, he couldn't hold it in anymore. Along the way, before they even reached the mouth of the volcano, they saw many figures flying back and forth in the distance. They were all busy and in full swing. When Lu Yi saw this, he knew that his plan was hopeless. The myriad demon ridge was obviously mining the fire spirit stones in the underground cave. Everything good in there was going to be swept clean. Lu Yi could use the battlefield imprint of the myriad demon ridge to blend in, but the reason he could do it so smoothly last time was because Lonely Mountain City was facing a powerful enemy, and no one could verify his identity. If he did it again this time, it might not be so smooth. If someone wanted to verify his identity, he wouldn't be able to justify himself. Moreover, even if he blended in, it wouldn't be of any use. He couldn't secretly mine the fire spirit stones by himself. How much could he collect? Unless he had the ability to sneak into Lonely Mountain City's treasury and loot it clean. This thought flashed through his mind, but Lu Yi quickly rejected it. It was too dangerous. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly saw a familiar figure flying out of the volcanic crater. When he took a closer look, it was indeed the person he knew. Moreover, the spiritual power fluctuations on her body were obviously not something a Cloud River tier cultivator could possess. She had also advanced to the true lake tier. Looking at the direction she was flying in, it seemed to be toward Lonely Mountain City. After pondering for a moment, Lu Yi did not disturb them. Although they had spent a period of time together and had even worked together for a short period of time, their positions were ultimately different. If they met on the battlefield in the future, they would still be enemies who needed to fight. But then again, when Lu Yi was still in the Return to Heaven Valley spiritual land, many cultivators from the Myriad Demon Ridge were about to encircle and annihilate him. It was this woman who secretly informed Lu Yi, telling him to escape. Although Lu Yi didn't escape in the end, he still owed her a favor. Therefore, if they really met in the future, he could consider going easy on her. When he returned from his patrol, he happened to see a cultivator from Vast Skies City waiting outside his bamboo house. This person was a subordinate of Gan Wu Dang and was in charge of taking the refined exploding fire spirit stones from Lu Yi. His name was Qing Xiu.